The legal tampering period is underway in the NFL. So far, no reports for the Bills, though Buffalo did make waves yesterday as they announced a 6-year, $330 million deal for quarterback Josh Allen. That deal also includes $250 million guaranteed. And if you want more information on that and some of the other extensions the Bills have passed out, you can see that up at our website, WGR550.com. Now to the news of the day, some of the reports going around. We'll start at the quarterback position as Sam Darnold has his new team. He's going to Seattle. 3-year, $100.5 million deal, $55 million guaranteed. The Jets go and get Justin Fields, 2 years, $40 million deal with $30 million guaranteed. New England has had a very busy day. Defensive tackle Milton Williams, 4-year, $104 million deal. Offensive tackle Morgan Moses, 3 years, $24 million. Cornerback Carlton Davis, 3 years, $60 million. And linebacker Robert Spillane, 3 years, $37.5. Carolina had a day in the secondary. They lock in their cornerback J.C. Horn to a 4-year, $100 million extension, $70 million guaranteed. And they continued that with bringing in safety Trevon Moehrig to a 3-year, $51 million deal. Tennessee spent big on the O-line. Left tackle Dan Moore, 4-year, $82 million deal, $50 million guaranteed. And the Bears, they continued their offensive line rebuild as they get center Drew Dahlman, 3 years, $42 million. And then the Sabres, they are also in action tonight at home against the Oilers. Pregame at 6, a 7 p.m. puck drop. It's going to be an ESPN Plus game, so you can only hear Dan and Rob right here on WGR. But before that, do stay tuned, as at 5:30, General Manager Kevin Adams will join the show. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet, celebrating 90 years of business. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
If you wrap foil around that, just like the little bit of the base part of the banana where the fruit is, wrap foil around that top and they will last longer.
You know, I'm something of a scientist myself.
Who needs your bananas to last longer, though?
Look, I don't want to go to the store every other day for bananas.
They're 8 cents each.
What the hell are you talking about? What is going on?
You're going to wrap them in foil?
They're better when they're just a little green. Yeah.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
Too much work.
Not that much trouble.
Too much work.
Says the guy that's got a spreadsheet with 3,000 fantasy teams.
On WGR Sports Radio 550.
Got a new name from this weekend for a future fantasy team. Haven't picked which one yet. Blowhards Adjacent. There was a discussion about somebody was called a blowhard. It wasn't me, believe it or not. Somebody in the room was called a blowhard, and then there was a debate about whether that was too harsh for this person.
Right.
And I decided, well, they're blowhard adjacent. And you slap an S on the noun there, boom. Magic.
Just like that.
Blowhards Adjacent, coming to a league near you.
You should start a website where people can pay for memberships to get ideas for fantasy team names.
Yeah. Although I think probably Odyssey would sue.
Just churn them out.
All they have to do is listen to us. I mean, I'd be competing with myself and just causing more trouble. What's the lead right now? Like, what's the biggest thing that has happened since Saturday?
I think that the dream of a big move died with Garrett and Metcalf both getting done before, I was here Friday, I left the air, and, the most recent thing Friday, no, it wasn't done. Saturday is when the Rouso news came, but Sal suspected that was in the hopper and was sort of on watch for that, and it eventually came. But, yeah, I mean, the moves that happened through the day yesterday that took the two biggest ticket items out there. Whether the Bills are actually players for either of them, who knows? I mean, their name was mentioned prominently, but I don't know. I never heard they're heatedly talking to anybody about any of it, really. The Seahawks said they were talking to everybody, I think, was the word before they consummated the trade with Pittsburgh.
I also never had any sort of clue that the Bills were the favorites to land anybody like this.
But to me, it's that, that those just before you even got to today, those evaporated. And I don't know how shocking it is that Metcalf chooses to go to Pittsburgh after talking about wanting to go to a contender and a warm weather climate. I mean, they paid him like crazy, and maybe they'll sign Aaron Rodgers and win their 9 games. I don't know. The Garrett thing from neither side. The Browns' position on Garrett never really made sense to me. He wants to go. You have to pay him the top, very top, establish a new top of the market for a non-quarterback in the league, and you're still kind of buried. So I don't really know what they're doing. I mean, the pride, I guess, they're keeping a great player. Inarguably, the guy's a great player. I just never, I understood why he wanted to leave. I never really understood why they wanted him to stay. You get 3 assets and keep moving. Like, you're not going to be good for a few years here until you figure out what to do with the rest of that Watson money and get a quarterback in place and maybe start living again. I mean, I feel like at least this season is just going to be a wash.
That might be, I mean, it's a good question. That might be an exercise in, all the times that people talk, the GMs talk and coaches talk and players talk, and then guys like us sit around and go, all right, did they really mean it? The Browns people put their chips on the table in terms of what they said in the public domain. It's like, we're not trading Myles Garrett. And then, again, people in our jobs go, all right, did they really mean that? I felt like they probably, because it was so strict the way they were talking, that they really can't. There's no good, reason to backpedal on that anytime soon. Maybe you get to a pressure point and, all right, well, we wanted to keep him, but we can't. Like, he's going to go, and that could have been at the draft, or more likely in my mind, it would have been in the summer at the earliest, into the season especially. But they were, no, we're not listening to trade offers. We're not going to trade the player. And that's where they ended up.
Yeah, so good for them. I mean, they got what they wanted, but again, I'm not real sure why they wanted that.
Yeah.
Garrett's perspective on it is what? It's just back up the truck. I'm sure he's going to get plenty of shots fired at him for being, because he did really what the Browns did. I don't want to play here anymore. It was never about going to Canton from Cleveland. It was about winning Super Bowls and contending for titles and all that. I don't want a contract extension, all of it. You were led to believe that there was not an amount of money that Cleveland could put in front of him that would have him back off of that. But lo and behold, here we are.
You sound like someone who's saying that you don't think the Browns can win anytime soon.
I don't really. I don't. I think they're the same team that he wanted to leave. We'll see what they manage to pull off here, quarterback-wise.
Who is most likely right now to be their starting quarterback?
Cam Ward? I don't know. Is there a veteran out there that elevates them at this point? Darnold found a home. I've never heard Rodgers for Cleveland.
No.
It looks like Pittsburgh is that. Fields isn't any good, but he's found a place. He's going to the Jets.
It could be, they could bring Winston back. It could be Daniel Jones. It could be Tyrod Taylor, who's already played there. It could be Cousins, somebody like that.
None of these are elevating type players.
Not really, no. I mean,
and that was, I think, I would have included Darnold in that. He's off the market now, going to Seattle.
They're probably lucky that they didn't.
Yeah, I would agree. I think any team that didn't do that is going to be paid off in the end, because it's a pretty modest, by quarterback standards, contract. Darnold did not go to the top of the market. Zach is raising his hand.
The Bills have signed a wide receiver, at least reportedly, 3 years, $36 million to Josh Palmer.
Okay, that was a good sound.
Yeah. You caught me. I mean, I don't know.
He's a guy, I think.
I think he's a guy.
That's about the best I can do.
I'm pretty sure he does not break the first-round pick stat, the trivia question with Allen, with Kelvin Benjamin being the only first-round pick he's played with at wide receiver. Well, let's get to work on Josh Palmer. For me, and you might be able to catch me on some of this because I haven't, gotten my master's in this guy yet. But absolute okay, wide receiver 3 on the Chargers, maybe a time or two moved up when there was an injury, but was never like a real difference maker. He's had a couple good games, like Hollins maybe in that way, where when they signed Hollins, he'd had a couple of big days, but really was like nobody's idea of a top receiver, and that even though he had the 5 touchdowns to lead the team, receptions, never really changed. Palmer, 25, from Toronto. Didn't know that. Played at Tennessee.
6'1", 210, so kind of just average size, I'd say. Like maybe a little on the bigger end, but he's not big. 6'4", some giant out there.
Man, $12 million a year.
Career high 72 catches 3 seasons ago with the Chargers, 2022.
And that was a pretty good team. So that's pre-Harbaugh. And that's Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. I don't know if Mike Williams played out the season. He got hurt a lot. 20, Brandon Staley, 22. He was first in catches on that team among receivers. A few more than Allen, who missed 6 games. A few more than Williams, who missed 3. So, yeah, that's the best we got there.
4.5 speed coming out of college, so not elite speed. Just a guy who has played in the league and will continue to play in the league is what a guy. He's not a.
Let's see that be the quote. Let's see that be the Bills.
To
quote.
me, I'm not. I wouldn't be. I'd be wrong to say I'm like upset about it, but it's not to me a big meter mover.
I might be upset. No, it's that at least. I might be upset. I'm thinking about what is it. Free agency was never going to be it, right? De'Ami Brown was the one guy I thought who was kind of like had a little bit of juice that was way down the list, and he got 5 minutes before this. He got a deal from Jacksonville. I saw $10 million up to 12. It might have been 1 year, but I thought he was somebody that we could argue about. I don't know if Palmer you can even argue about. Unless you're just arguing with somebody who's like, just go Bills. I mean, go Bills guy is going to tell you how great he is.
Right.
I don't know. Well, did I say it? It makes me think about what it means to the draft. Is he at $12 million a year, whoever it is, you think like that's a number that would preclude a team from spending like serious draft capital, especially a team that just broke the franchise record in points. But I don't know. Like the money is ridiculous right now. What the whole weekend was for me, including Rouso and Bernard, and before that Shakir, it's good players getting great deals because their timing is perfect, right? And these guys were good players on a good team, if not a great team. And what do you want to do? Do you want to go try to find life without them, or do you want to, keep it going? And so it makes sense to me the Bills did what they did. And that means $20 million a year, right, for Rouso and whatever, Shakir, 15 on average, and Bernard. Like, you keep doing that. It's interesting to me that Benford didn't happen, or even that Cook didn't happen, because I wonder if those are maybe a little bit more contested negotiations. I don't know that, but Benford could want.
Benford should be near the top of the market, and yeah, like that probably is a harder deal. I mean, I think most of the analysis of these deals has been like the Bills beat the posse kind of thing. Like they got Shakir done before this happened, before Josh Palmer got $12 million a year today. They got Rouso done before Myles Garrett reset the market at defensive end. Corner, like Benford's people recognizing that he should end up at or near the top, probably wanted to wait. I might guess anyway. Wait and see what today and this week would bring before signing on and getting the security of the long-term deal.
Amari Cooper was a first-round pick. Thanks to the listener who corrected me on that. I forgot about him. So he's a first-round wide receiver that played for the Bills with Allen.
And Palmer, to me, Not say he's ever been what Cooper has been in his career, but there's your Cooper replacement, I think. I'm not thinking this is a Mac Hollins replacement. I would still think that the Bills would be interested and should be able to do that at some reasonable number off of what he did last year. But
that'll be interesting, though.
I thought they needed another veteran receiver to replace Cooper, and I have a feeling that that's what Palmer is for them.
Cooper's dead now.
Yes, I agree. I don't think it ever really was alive.
Yeah,
but this, I think, definitively closes the door on that.
Well, the Bills are paying $12 million a year for a wide receiver who's had more than 39 catches once. That's what happened. Should probably work. I mean, they have Josh Allen on the team, so like last year, just do whatever you want. A wide receiver. Is this guy somebody? This is not DK Metcalf. This is not somebody.
No, this is not a game-changing player. This is not a speed player. This is a
guy.
Again, it's a guy. It's a guy. He'll be, I'm going to guess, dependable and be in the right places. And that's $12 million.
It's $12 million a year.
I mean, you got to work, I think, to sort of avoid getting freaked out. The money is just, the money just grows. It grows and grows and grows every year. And so, the going rate, the cap goes up. So I guess I've kind of gotten over getting freaked out by whatever the dollars are. That doesn't mean there aren't guys that get deals that you go, whoa. But I don't know. If last year's $8 million player costs 10 or 12 now, that doesn't surprise me. I guess that's what inflation is. That's what the cap going up $20 million a year does to the marketplace.
Right. That's true. We'll see as the dust settles these few days what these cap situations look like to teams. Because right now it feels like it doesn't exist, the cap. Just more's coming after that, whatever it takes. And that's what made Metcalf, for me, and Garrett and whoever else you wanted, like the top guys, I could get my head around the Bills doing that, even if not every aspect of that analysis felt right. Because it seems like right now we're in a little bit of a who cares what it costs moment. And this should probably be, relatively speaking, a who cares what it costs team. Like this is the Super Bowl window and all of that. So, hey, sell your draft picks, go get the very best players out there, pay them whatever they want because it's not going to hurt you. And in the end, they were not able to do at least these ideas that we talked about the most, whether they wanted to or not. That didn't happen. And we get to today, and they signed this player who's okay for up to $36 million. I can't say it without laughing yet. It just seems like so ridiculous. But, I get it. That's where we're at in the league. I do want to see if we get to a year or 2 or 3 from now and any of this matters at all.
Right.
Because maybe it won't. Maybe that's the copycat league takeaway from the Philadelphia Eagles.
Right.
Is just don't worry about it.
Just keep pushing, void years, and figure out a way to just keep it rolling. Yeah, $18 million guaranteed is the report, 3 years. So I don't, this not a hard and fast rule. In other words, there are surely exceptions to this. But I know I saw one of the big guys tweeting today. No, that wasn't even one of the big guys. It was somewhere below like the Schefter Rappaport level, because they're the ones that are always telling you here's the annual average value on this huge deal that has outs after the second of the 3 years. Like, I'll bet this Palmer deal comes in closer to like 2 years, $20 million or something when it's all said and done. Like there's window dressing but the guaranteed money is 18. So I'll bet they can walk away from it after 2 probably easily. I'm just guessing at that. But that's a lot of these deals end up structured that way. So while it on the surface says 3 years, 36, 12 a year, I'll bet it's not really 12 a year in the end.
It never is, right?
Right. So, but whatever. This is the marketplace. Doesn't change the player. The player's okay.
That's what I think. He's okay. Doesn't really change. I'm not sure yet if it changes anything we ever talk about. Except Whether they'll draft they could still draft a wide receiver. They have 2 seconds. They could still do that. But I think the main takeaway, at least to this point, in terms of the draft, is Rouso is still here. Myles Garrett is not here. Neither is Max Crosby or even Khalil Mack. And so we were probably always going to those 3 picks, 30 to 60, whatever it is, 62, those 3 picks, for 2 of them to be, defensive linemen, probably interior or one of each. That's where they're the most needy. And they didn't, obviously, do anything here that gets in the way of that. This contract today should affect the calculus at receiver, but at the same time, it makes defensive line more, glaring. And you still have Benford, you still have cornerback 2, and you still have whatever else you want to, include in this.
Assuming they get Hollins back, I think this is their receiver move, irrespective of the draft. I mean, I don't know, but I think that even takes. This is a starting play. This guy will play. Probably, I want to say more than Cooper even did, because Cooper did not play that big a role. And I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't be so quick to assume Hollins will be back. He could find something nice out there. Who knows? More than what the Bills feel like they want to pay out to the player. That would surprise me, but it could happen. I mean, in a world where this player is getting that contract, I don't want to assume anything. That a player who led a team that went to the AFC Championship game in touchdown receptions maybe can find a marketplace out there. I don't know. Keep it coming. I couldn't even get through it. But if they get Hollins back, then I think their receivers are here. Again, they could draft someone, but I feel like the urgency to find a guy that could contribute right away dissipates almost completely if they re-sign Hollins to go along with this Palmer move.
Hollins is probably I don't think this does anything but bump up the likelihood of that, him being back. Right. He's not going to play the same role that Mac Hollins did for the Bills. Mac Hollins was a blocker, he played a certain role. That is not Palmer. I'm looking at his PFF now. Last year's snaps, out wide 422, slot 189. So it's not like he never played the slot, but mostly out wide. And he's not on the field for running plays for a Jim Harbaugh team. He just came off the field. Like he's not here to replace Mac Hollins. I'm pretty sure you're right.
Right.
Well, we'll see. Here's Peter with us. Hi, Peter.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, thank you.
I love this signing. Josh Palmer, you guys are seriously underestimating him, just as you underestimated Matt Collins last year. Okay, so Joe Marino loves this signing. That was his number one get Josh Palmer. He goes into it. So we were all in agreement that the Bills receivers could not separate last year. They were like mud. Josh Palmer was number 5 out of 171 receivers in separation last year.
By who? By what? Where?
In what?
PFF or where was he number 5? Where's that from?
Joe Marino did all. If you watch the Marino podcast from yesterday or the free,
so he would know.
Okay.
Yeah, he goes into it, but he goes over and over. He went really deep into the analytics.
Okay.
How the guy can separate. He is a good blocker. He said he was a good blocker. He's 6'1". He's 25 years old.
He's a good blocker that the Jim Harbaugh coach Chargers took off the field on running plays.
I don't know. Maybe they had a big package. Maybe they went 12 package.
Maybe.
I'm not sure what their offense did.
I don't
need him to be a good blocker.
I like the separator point. That's maybe the most important thing that they were lacking. That's the reason they made the Cooper trade in the first place, is they were having trouble getting anyone open, and teams were pressing them, and they had to do something, and so they did. And if this guy has a rep for being excellent at that, then that elevates his presence almost immediately.
Hey, Bulldog can say different if he wants, Peter. I don't think I underestimated Mac Hollins. He caught 31 passes in 17 games. I might have thought it was more of a long shot that he'd play all the time, but it made sense to me because he is a bigger guy. and had the blocking chops that the Bills would want that, because every minute of the last year plus I've thought this team wants to be a running team. So, I mean, he didn't light it up. That's really the touchdown stat is the only thing about his season that was really like at all surprising to me. I don't feel like I underestimated him. I think he's a guy that, does well to be on the field for anybody. And I kind of think that's Palmer too, but I don't know. I haven't thought about him at all really until 10 minutes ago. And now it's time to dig in on Josh Palmer. Thanks for the call, Peter. 803-0550. Sal joins us at 4. There is a lot to talk about. 5:30, Kevin Adams. The Sabres host Edmonton tonight. Thanks for listening. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog here, WGR.
We know you can't hear every moment of
draft, develop, and re-sign our own. And while we can't do everyone because there is a cap, and sometimes we've had to let some really good players that we've drafted here go on and get contracts elsewhere, but this sends a message to the locker room like, come in, you're drafted here, do everything right, make plays, whatever position it is, and the Bills will try to re-sign you if they can make it work.
Brandon Bean on with Pat McAfee. I think it's a great time to be a player. What isn't? But it's a great time to be a player whose contract is up, or is like Josh Allen, his contract isn't up, but this is the thing you do right now because it's just so win-win. It's a great time to be a GM because the screws are not being tightened right now. It's more just you can't buy everybody, of course, and he said that about even his own players. But this is kind of stress-free, isn't it? Bernard, Rouso, Shakir. I feel like these negotiations, and this is not even about the Bills. This is like every team that has guys like this. The team puts out an offer for the player, and the player says, all right, and we're done. They just sign it.
Right.
Because, the numbers, so many of these contracts are like, wow, this guy is an X $1 million a year player. And that's definitely true of Josh Palmer as I see it. But I think everybody's just kind of shrug emoji. Sure, why not? We can afford it. Cap growing. We want to keep you. That narrative works for the Bills with Bernard, et cetera. They're good.
Well, we'll see if how long it takes to get something done with Benford and or Cook. They are the last two of the remaining five guys that are, I think core pieces that you'd expect the team to want to extend after their first 3 years. And they're the two guys that are rating, right at the top of the market. Rouso even came in under the spot track estimation on Rouso that I remember was between 22 and 25 million. So they came in under that, which is a good deal. Shakir, I think, was timely and good. And, Benford as well. These other two, that might be where your stress comes in. Because Cook wants to be paid near the top of the market for running backs. And I don't know if the Bills have a philosophical objection to doing that. They've not done it yet with this group of people running the team, McDermott and Bean. That doesn't mean they won't, but I'm not eager for them to sign Cook to satisfy what he wants anyway. There's always risk involved. The team is watching the other players. They want guys to get taken care of, but they could choose to go the long road. With Cook as a running back. They have him under contract for another year. There is the franchise tag if it were to get to that. So, we'll see how that plays into them meeting or not meeting what Cook wants. Benford is not as complicated. I'm fine paying a corner at the top of the market, but you still got to swallow hard and figure out a way to do it and make him one of the highest paid guys in the league at his position. So those would be a little harder. I think these other deals were easy necessarily, but I agree with the stress-free assessment. Here, I think, is where the stress comes in, these other two guys.
Yeah, we'll see. Here's Jim with us next on WGR. Hi, Jim.
Hey, how you guys doing, man? Love the guys' show.
Thank you.
Nice to actually talk to Buffalo sports fans who actually have an education and know what they're talking about instead of somebody who just, big cities. So calling about the Josh Palmer thing here. My word. Just going through some numbers, looking at spot tracks, seeing what people's contracts are. So I'm just going to put this out here real quick. So Josh Palmer, been in the league 4 years. We bring this guy in to potentially be a number one. Here's his actual number. Started in 2021, so 4 years. We got 33 catches, 72 on 107 targets. That's the year that we all remember Josh. Hey, I think that's where this contract comes from, is that year. Hey, the guy had production. Then the rest, so 33, 72, 38, 39. Touchdowns. First year, 4, then 3, then 2, then 1. Hey, I assume we come to Buffalo, let's just do the math, and probably 0. Looking at many other guys and what we're paying this guy, it doesn't make sense to me. Looking at everybody who's out there, let's say Keenan Allen. I think we brought him in close to the same price. And if we're going to bring in somebody like this, I'd almost just do what we've been doing. Let's bring in somebody that we have drafted in-house, and let's say somebody like Tyrell Shavers. That way we can get around the cap, maybe pay somebody like Cook. And I think Shavers and this guy, I think it's just a wash.
Okay. Thanks, Jim. A few things. Keenan Allen is not a fit. I mean, Keenan Allen is old and is going to play inside, and the Bills have Shakir, if not Kincaid also, and they're not looking for somebody to play that role. Palmer is 25 or 26. He at least makes sense, it seems, in terms of what he does well and what the Bills need. That's not Keenan Allen. I don't know if it's Tyrell Shavers, who was undrafted maybe and basically has made one play in the NFL. Maybe it is. We'll find out in time. But I think that's the pro case on Palmer for the Bills is outside receiver. Scott Barrett had it. A caller referenced, he's fifth in something, but didn't know from where. Scott Barrett, who's been on with us, Fantasy Points, rates Palmer, this might be his analysis or theirs, 10th in the league last year out of 160 receivers in what he calls route win rate. I mean, that's really good. The fact that he doesn't have the volume, the target share, that kind of thing, is also a red flag for me because you earn targets. We've had arguments over the years about Dawson Knox, tight end, but still, same principle is even though there's so much quarterback variance in the league, the data shows that it's the receiver's talent comes to the surface when it comes to target share. They become undeniable. And this guy has been far from that. At least he is down the field. The guys who have 15, as he's had the last 2 years, 15 yards per catch are not going to have this, logically, right? They're not going to have the same, they're not going to be fed as often. You have a Devontae Adams every once in a while, like a guy who's elite will be both. They'll be able to have the big yards per catch and, get 30% targets or whatever it is. So I don't know what Palmer's number is exactly there, but it doesn't seem like a player who's ever meant that much to the Chargers in 4 years. And so sounds to me, add it all up, sounds to me like what? A specialist, kind of. And you're referencing the money, which I was talking about earlier, that's always sort of you want to do that. But right now it feels like the money is just forget about it. Just forget about it. You want to win a bidding war, this is what it's going to take. And it doesn't, I predict the Bills will not run into a crisis when it comes to the salary cap or anybody else. That in time, with it always going up and going up a lot now in the next few years, that it's time to push in. And in a year where, sorry for going so long, but in a year where the wide receiver free agent options aren't great, this kind of feels like where you can end up is you take a guy that is suited for what you need, even though he's really not done very much in the league, and you're just here's your money. Let's go.
Yeah.
I think that's this.
I think if he represents a skill set that they needed on this team. Again, circling back to last fall and the Cooper trade. They went into the year, everybody eats, we don't need a number one, played 6 games, a couple of them went badly, and thought we need to do something about that, and they did. And they had a great year on offense. So, Cooper represented much more than this player does, Palmer, a number one receiver. But how was he used within this offense? Not at all like a number one receiver. So I wouldn't worry to the caller using that terminology to describe they're looking for this guy to be their number one receiver. I doubt that they are going to say that. I doubt that they even intend for that to happen. He's a guy that hopefully can be respected enough to get open and therefore have some sort of a trickle-down effect on the rest of your cast, on the rest of your pass catchers. It does not, meet the criteria that we were dreaming about last week when we were talking about DK Metcalf and a player that is that much of a threat that defenses are going to, we got to make sure we've got this buttoned up, and then everything else, becomes a little easier for your offense. I don't think Palmer represents that. But I do like that he does have the skill set, the thing in his bag that they maybe most needed when they made the Cooper trade, and that's being able to, just win, just get open. And, however many passes that leads to him catching, because hopefully it gets off the ground enough that there is some impact on the rest of the field because he's good at getting open.
So, yeah, I mean, if you can't do it, I think you can't do it by the dollars, because if you do it by the dollars, he's number one, or number two, I guess, to Shakir, but like right there. And I don't know if I expect like a huge spike in receptions. Last year, the second most receptions by any player beyond Shakir, by a wide receiver, I should say, not any player, is Hollins and Samuel with 31. Curtis Samuel tied for second on this team with Mac Hollins, parenthetically, in catches by a wide receiver at fewer than 2 per game. I guess with Samuel it would be a little higher because he missed games, but still, it's not a lot. So will they want to play mostly the same way? Why not? Worked. And this guy will play a role in that, maybe even an important one, something that they don't have already. But if you make it about $12 million a year, you'll never get off the ground because I just feel like by the current standards, this will never be a player like, oh, yeah, $12 million. I just went to a friend's weekend in Philly with for baseball drafts. I go every year. And for me, with baseball, I cram. I had the book. I don't have it today because the drafts are over. So I'm not carrying it around so much anymore. The drafts are over. But you look at the money a pitcher makes. And, there's a guy, Alex Cobb, who's been in the game a long time, but he's broken down. He's old, and he's hurt again. I'm thinking, do I want to draft Alex Cobb? Answer, no. Detroit gave him $15 million for 1 year, just in case.
Right.
That's beside the point, though. Just for football, I think we've got to really, I'm saying it over and over, you really got to, comprehend what is happening right now with money. I mean, what did Diggs make? Here.
High 20s, almost 30 million. I mean, the dead cap was 31 million. So 12 million is like walking around money.
Yeah. And the top dollars are going up. Chase will get, well, who knows with Chase.
I think maybe what this represents mostly is really, it's the opposite effect or impact that a big move for a Metcalf would have had. Because what did we talk about last week? If they were to do this, what does it mean to their offense? What does it mean to James Cook getting paid? Are they shifting? Because if you're going to pay, Metcalf ends up getting $33 million a year from the Steelers on a new deal when he goes there. Funny, they don't have a quarterback as of now, but I'm sure they have a plan at least. But you get a guy like that, and you need that to be 110 catches. You're looking for that to be an engine that drives your offense. I think what this move says to me is the Bills really weren't in the market for an engine that drives their offense. They were looking for some tires. Just some stuff. Let's just add some parts and we'll just keep going the way we've been going.
What car part is Josh Palmer? 803-0550. We have Sal coming up at 4. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog, WGR. Is everyone enjoying life an hour later?
Love it.
Love it. Obviously, you didn't have to get up yesterday.
No, fine. I got up at 9, which would have been 8, which is fine.
Yeah, no urgency.
No, I mean it's Sunday. Like I don't have kid hockey or anything. So sort of ease into the day. So I have the luxury of sort of just adjusting, and now today back to normal.
It is a luxury.
Yeah.
What I liked about it yesterday was driving from Jersey 6 hours or so. It stayed light out.
Right.
Like that.
One of the things I thought as I was leaving the house today to come here, like, we're going to get done and it's going to be light out. And it's going to be like that until, like, November.
Oh.
Which
Settle in.
I like.
Settle in.
Almost went golfing today. The kid came home from his morning show shift and was like, there's people out there. I think I'm going to go. I'm like, I walked out on the porch. I'm like, nah.
Not yet.
It's a little too chilly still. Hopefully by Saturday. I don't know. We'll see if they are officially open, but people just, storm the park with their golf clubs. They were out there yesterday and today.
Really?
Yeah. Some good Samaritans occasionally will, I think they leave holes, like the last holes of the year. They don't fill them in. They're left there. And so someone will put a stick. There's no flags out there yet, but somebody put a stick in the cup so you can eventually see some semblance of what am I shooting for? What's my target? Okay, yeah.
60s this weekend.
Yeah, I think Saturday. I'm hoping it's official. I want to play Saturday.
Here's Charlie next. Hi, Charlie.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Just hanging out, doing a radio show.
All right, I'm calling you because I really love James Cook's performances. I watched as a season ticket holder back in the day, Cookie Gilchrist, and I remember, and of course Thurman Thomas. And James Cook has been a wonderful addition to us. He doesn't even get all the snaps, but he is producing, and I feel that we should want to compliment the quarterback. I think that our quarterback deserves every penny he's getting as the highest paid. I think he deserves it. But I think James Cook, it's too many people saying, well, James Cook, listen, this is a Pro Bowler. This is a star, and he has produced for us. And I'd hate to see it. Stephon Diggs, okay, that's one thing. And it proved to be a wise decision to move on. But I don't think we should just give up on James Cook.
Who's talking about giving up on it? I mean, I think that the contract is, I think, tricky. Like, do you want to pay him what he wants? Do you want the Bills to just give him 3 years, $45 million? Or 4 years, $60 million? Like, is that what you want? Because his performance right now, like, I love his performance, but it's at $5 million. Once it's at the top of the market, then I get a little worried about it.
Now, we're going to pay $300 and some million for Josh Allen. And I think we can't be penny wise and dollar foolish. This man is worth far more than $5 million. And I don't know why so many people are saying, well, we just shouldn't pay the money. You can't get a quality running back like that that's durable, young, effective. He's got years to go, and he can be a great addition to what we have. He is a key thing. He produced over and over.
Do you want to, Charlie, do you want to know why people say it? I don't know if you listen to their argument. If you listen to us, you would hear it all the time. Do you want to know why people say that they shouldn't pay him what Bulldog is saying?
Go ahead. Why?
Because, especially compared to quarterback, it's other ends of the extreme, other ends of the spectrum. Running backs are more easily replaceable. That's simply why. Value is determined by how replaceable are you. If Josh Allen goes down, what do? There are just only about hundreds of running backs who might have been to some fans' eyes, elite, Pro Bowl level, and they get hurt and they get replaced and they're just as good. So that's what the dilemma is.
Because you guys are I give you credit. You're the experts, but it just seems to me, as a layman, watching this, after seeing what they did with Philadelphia, what we did with Derrick Henry, and the game has changed again. And I think we have an elite runner, one of the top 10, top 7 runners in the NFL. And I think he should be paid. So that's it for now, but I've enjoyed your show.
Appreciate it, Charlie. Yeah.
The experts.
Well, I'm definitely not saying that about myself, right. But I think that's the answer to your question. I mean, it's because of the position.
Yeah, and I'm just talking in here like the Bills have got – they have needs. They have things that they need to address on this team. And if you want to just pay the running back, then something else is going unfilled. They're gonna have to like go without somewhere else. And if he is dug in on being top of the market, and you said it yourself, he doesn't play. He plays half the snaps. Like other backs, Barkley plays 70% of the snaps. So that I think is a factor too in trying to figure out what to do there. And the Bills have got some things at their disposal here, some tools at their disposal. They have the player under contract for another year. There is a franchise tag out there. I mean, that's one big year, one big lump sum, but that's also maybe for a single year more convenient than biting off a big commitment to a running back. We'll see. I mean, none of this is to say like I'm going to flip out if they get him for $10 million a year. I think it would be a good job with where he has started out, what his desire is, if they are able to do that. And maybe that's where we end up. I don't know. But top of market is not anywhere I want to go almost with any running back ever.
Lots of ways to look at it. You could use fantasy if you want. Certainly doesn't tell the whole story. In drafts happening this year, and by the way, there have been thousands of them, Cook goes as running back 14, right behind Chase Brown of the Bengals, after scoring 18 touchdowns for a top offense. Sal Capaccio after the update. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog, WGR.
Caller.
The legal tampering period is underway in the NFL, and the Buffalo Bills are reportedly on the board. They are signing wide receiver Josh Palmer to a 3-year, $36 million deal with $18 million guaranteed. We do have more on this signing up at our website, WGR550.com, and also stay tuned as Sal Capaccio will join the show next. Some of the other big moves from today: quarterback Sam Darnold has his new team. He heads to Seattle on a 3-year, $100.5 million deal with $55 million guaranteed. The Commanders are trading for left tackle Laramie Tunsil, and to do so are sending Houston a 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round pick. New England has been very involved today. Defensive tackle Milton Williams, 4-year, $104 million deal, $63 million guaranteed. Offensive tackle Morgan Moses, 3 years, $24 million. Cornerback Carlton Davis, 3 years, $60 million. And linebacker Robert Spillane, 3 years, $37.5 million. Arizona also got involved on defense. They make a splash. Edge rusher Josh Sweat, 4-year deal worth $76.4 million. While the Packers, they add guard Aaron Banks, 4 years, $77 million deal. We also have the Sabres in action tonight. They're at home against the Oilers, pregame at 6 for a 7 p.m. puck drop. It is going to be an ESPN Plus game, so you can only hear Dan and Rob right here on WGR. But before all of that, do stay tuned, as at 5:30, General Manager Kevin Adams will join the show. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of business. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
Do you ever hear the original song? Say Geronimo is the original song?
I've never heard the original song, other than the time that Tom Sitch might have played it for us to demonstrate what he was basing that off of. I've never heard the song.
Oh, so you were sort of in on the making of the song.
No, I'm just guessing that maybe he explained it and played the song for it. But I don't.
I think I already knew it.
I never knew it. I never knew it. I don't know it now. I only know it as the Sal Capaccio song.
I was getting my hair cut last week.
I'm fine living my life that way.
And heard Say Geronimo, and it's so weird. How about you on this, Sal? It's so weird to hear the original song now. Like you almost never do. But I always thought it was kind of catchy and fun. But
it
now
was one of those. It was. I'm surprised, Bulldog. Like, I mean, I know it's not your type of music necessarily, but I'm surprised you didn't hear it very often, because this was like, it was really hot for about a year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's called Shepherd Song, or Shepherd by Geronimo, or Say Geronimo by Shepherd. Is that what it is? Say Geronimo by Shepherd or something like that.
Say Geronimo is
Either
the song.
way, you get the point.
Yeah. Yeah. I miss a lot of pop music stuff.
I had to tell him who Taylor Swift was recently.
My kids aren't the age where, and we never really listened to that radio anyway. When my kids were little, like we listened to what we liked.
The drive-by truckers.
They grew up singing Rancid songs when they're in their car seats. So they did not hear.
I won't ask Owen then when he thinks of Say Geronimo.
A lot of Kiss 98.5.
Sorry, Kiss. Sorry, Janet. All right, Sal, let's start with Joshua Palmer on this very eventful day around the NFL. The Bills get a receiver. I think this will be an interesting guy to talk about. I mean, we've already had it in here this afternoon. Just sort of both sides of the coin.
For sure, and I get it. You look at the production, hasn't been overwhelming, no doubt about that. He's not putting up all these fancy numbers. Free agency is about fits. Free agency is about what you need to round out your team. You can go with guys that are, big names, obviously, and you also have an opportunity to try and fit guys into what you're trying to do. This is a fit signing for the Bills. This is something they've needed. This is a man-to-man beater on the outside, something they desperately need. He's physical at the point of attack. He's physical at the top of the route. He is a man-to-man beater, not by running straight down the field. He's an excellent route runner, very strong hands, can make contested catches with guys around him. He actually kind of, in a way, I'm not saying they're the same player, but I've been trying to find a guy. I think it's a lot like Amari Cooper was a little bit throughout his career. Now, again, Amari Cooper, much more productive. I get it, right? But that's his game, where it's kind of deceptive. He puts up these numbers because you're like, yeah, he's not super fast. He's not running away from people. But what did he do? He's a really good route runner. He can catch the ball with people around him. The Bills needed this player. We've all been asking for them to have an outside threat that can catch the ball and beat press coverage. He is a press coverage beater, actually.
Yeah, this is my Amari Cooper replacement, is what it is. Even though he doesn't rise to the level of what they were shopping for when they acquired Cooper during the season. That's a player that's had 100-catch, 1,000-yard, like big number one receiver type years. While this player lacks that, the skill set, what his attributes are, I think suitably replace Cooper. And so there's your move. Provided they can find their way to Hollins, retaining him. I'm assuming they would like to do that on something similarly modest to what he came here originally for. I hope that's realistic. I think they might be kind of all set at receiver, Sal. Maybe they can draft somebody to develop, but an urgency to get somebody on the field, I think, has been filled by this signing.
Yeah, unprompted, my buddy John Harris from the Houston Texans, you guys know, you've had him on the air. He's very big into the draft and scouting guys and all that, and obviously, he's an NFL sideline reporter. Unprompted, he texted me. I'll read you what he wrote. He's very much in on Josh Palmer. He said, I really wanted him here. Very good move for the Bills. Physical dude with great hands. I fell in love with him last year at Tennessee and then seeing him up close at the Senior Bowl. He's a great fit with Shakir. His last year at Tennessee, I think he meant.
Yeah.
Great fit with Shakir and Josh. That's a rave review. Last night on the Always Game Day in Buffalo podcast, Matt Bove asked me if you could choose one guy, give me one name who the Bills might sign. Josh Palmer was my answer. And I will give credit to Eric Turner of Cover One, who actually turned me on to him a little bit more when he did a great breakdown of him a while ago. Joe Marino is very much a fan of his, as you guys have heard earlier today. I heard a caller talk about it. So, yeah, I think this is a guy that fits. Now, what does it mean for the rest of the receiving core? I agree. They'd want to have Mac Hollins back. It always just feels like that's a fit. Mac Hollins is going to play special teams. He's going to be a gunner like he was. He can do that. He kind of accepts that role. He's a blocker. Josh Palmer can be physical. He can be a good blocker. It's not necessarily the role you'd have him on the field for necessarily, but I think in the Bills' offense, he'll probably do more of that than he did for the Chargers.
So what does this move, if you know, do for where the Bills are with money to spend? They got the deals done over the weekend, the Allen extension. Like, can they play some more here? How realistic is it to think that there might be more?
Oh, yeah, I think so. So we don't have the numbers on the Allen extension yet. His cap number this year was scheduled to be $44 million. So he signs this massive extension, $250 guaranteed, $330 total, $55 per year. That's extended over 6 years. There could be void years in there too, guys. Could be a 6-year. Let's remember, I'll remind people, it's not a 6-year extension. He had 4 years remaining. He's not under contract for 10 years. It's a new 6-year deal ripping up the old 4-year deal. It's a 2-year extension essentially, but with a lot of new money. But what you can do is you can add void years on top of that to extend the money out 7 years or 8 years. So my guess is his salary cap number is going to be much lower. Let's just say it's $20 million. Okay, that frees up 22. I would say going into the weekend, Spot Track and Over the Cap had them both right around $1 million over. Then they extended Greg Rouso. We learn now they shaved off $8 million off that Greg Rouso number. So they should be probably about $7 million under. We're totally guessing and estimating here. Then the Von Miller release happened. That puts you about $15 million under. Then the Josh Allen extension happens. That could be another 20. You could be looking at a good 25 to 30, and then we'll see what it is here for Josh Palmer. So I think they can certainly play still.
Do you think it's pretty much right or not at all to look at all this around the league, which is what I'm kind of doing? Just like, I mean, it's a great time to be a player, but it's also a great time to be a GM because there is just not a lot of stress, I think, right now, relatively speaking, for these guys. I think of some of the deals, maybe like Rouso and a lot of others around the league. The team makes the offer and the player says, okay, it's just so good. And, you can seeing what Philadelphia proved, I guess, by pushing money off void years and like 4 or 5 years down the road. Let's just spend and then we'll figure it out later.
Yeah, I like that point, Mike. It's you can project out. You look at the new TV money. You look at where the cap has gone the last 2 years, over $50 million from just a few years ago to this year. I mean, to me, I look at Greg Rousseau's deal as a great example of this. Greg Rouso was going to make $13 million on the cap this year. Excuse me. They lowered that down $8 million to just over $5 million. But next year, he's still only $11 million on the cap. It's not until 2027 that he gets to 23. And by then, this is your point, which is, okay, by then we'll figure it out. Who cares? Because it's going to change anyway, and we'll have to do some creative accounting, but you can definitely do that. So I agree with you. I think that with the exception of maybe what happened in Cleveland and Andrew Berry and what he's going through and trying to deal with that, Cincinnati's a tough one for Duke Tobin, obviously. And you have to have an owner that's willing to say, I'm giving you the money to spend. You can do that. But yeah, generally, I think in the NFL right now, because they're just printing money and the salary cap changes and you can just have these void years and push money down the road, that I think being a general manager is kind of like, it's fantasy land time, basically.
Well, we know like what we got lost dreaming about in the case of Myles Garrett, it was 6 weeks or almost 2 months. We had a few days where it was hot and heavy with the DK Metcalf idea. Obviously, both of those ships sailed yesterday, but needs remain for the Bills. I guess at receiver, though, like we've already said previously in this conversation, like I think they're done. Maybe they draft a guy, and they'll probably fill out with maybe some version of what they did last offseason with taking flyers on some guys to see if someone can reclaim lost glory.
Plus Hollins,
right? Of course, right. Defensive end, defensive tackle. I mean, the Garrett dream died. We saw them release Von Miller, and guys are, signing bit by bit as the day goes on here. Are there still guys out there, Sal? You mentioned how you called your shot to an extent on Palmer last night talking with Matt Bove. Mm-hmm. Are there players on defense at tackle or defensive end, or I guess even corner, where you can see similar value that the Bills might be doing some work on?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to remember, that we're going to see this money now, and then a lot of that money is going to dry up, and then teams are going to basically, and players, I should say, who are free agents, are going to then say, okay, well, I have to sign for a little bit less. And a lot of times, that's kind of the area where the Bills start to play a little bit, right? And they say, okay, now that this money is dried up, now we can start to do that. Yeah, I mean, just guys-wise, player-wise, not really sure, because I think that, a lot of this stuff has already been taken care of with some of the guys. Poona Ford was out there, but man, he got paid. That was a guy that I thought, okay, he's familiar with the system. He's been a Buffalo Bill. He could come in. Who was the other one? Who was the guy that signed the Broncos?
DJ Jones.
DJ Jones, thank you. That DJ Jones was a guy that I talked about. I think we mentioned him on the pod last night. So he's probably a guy that went for a little bit more than I thought. Let's see who else could be out there. Chauncey Goldston. He's a guy that is out there that I don't think that he's signed anywhere yet. What about you talking about cornerback? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, do you want to dip into and see, is Asante Samuel Jr. somebody you're interested in? Paulson Adebo just signed today with the New York Giants. That's somebody who is out there, but how good really is he? I'm not sure. This is where you get to they're overpaying these guys and they're not really worth the money they're getting. The fact that they have this Christian Benford thing sitting out there and we're not sure who the number 2 corner is, I've been thinking about this a lot today, which is, what is their long-term plan at corner? Are they going to draft guys? Corner could become a spot where we really talk about on the first couple of days of the draft. They may look to get younger there. And that's not saying they won't keep Christian Benford. The fact, if they go out and sign a big-ticket item, I think it's harder. But if they don't at corner, I think that's a signal that they're going to pay Benford down within the next 12 months, I guess.
Sal Capaccio on the West Shore Hotline, a very busy day and weekend around the NFL. We got the quarterback shuffling we've been waiting for. It's too late for that carousel draft, Bulldog. You can't do that now. It'd be too easy.
We really blew it.
It'd be too easy. Justin Fields to the Jets. Could that work?
No.
I don't think that's a great fit right now, but I like Justin Fields, like for him to go there. Like I think that's good for him. Like I think he needs to kind of get out of that situation he was in Pittsburgh, where I don't know if they handled him correctly, and he's probably pretty frustrated by how it went down, and he was the guy, and he was winning games. They went to Russ, and it wound up working out in the end, but for him to go somewhere where maybe there's a little less pressure, they're resetting, they're restarting a little bit, you have a really great, talented young wide receiver, but guys, I mean, look what the Jets have lost here in free agency. It seems like they're kind of resetting a little bit. 14-year playoff drought, probably going to be 15. Aaron Glenn, I think, just wants his guys in there. Looks like the Patriots are trying to do the opposite. They're trying to load up now and just get right back as soon as possible, where the Jets are like, yeah, we're not going to do that. We're going to kind of let it play out. And, they lost an offensive lineman. They're not a team, I think, that they lost DJ Reed, obviously, at corner. So they're a team, I don't know if it's going to work for the Jets. I don't think it will for their team. I mean, look, who's better? Honestly, who's better? Last year's carcass of Aaron Rodgers or Justin Fields this year for the New York Jets? I really don't know, to be quite honest with you.
Right. I feel like that might even be a push, if not a downgrade.
Right. Yes,
in
exactly.
the end. And I'll say the same thing about Rodgers. If he goes to Pittsburgh, I mean, just, I don't know, thoughts and prayers. That whole thing, that whole operation there, it's Tomlin and Arthur Smith, and they've got a $33 million receiver now and George Pickens. Like, please bring Aaron Rodgers in there. I want to just watch a reality show. I just want to follow those dudes around with cameras.
100%. We said the same thing. I was on the morning show, and I said Hard Knocks with the Steelers. If they do have Aaron Rodgers there, oh my gosh, you're right about that. I can't see that going great. And look, they're in a tough division. Steelers in a tough division with the Ravens and the Bengals, obviously, mostly, and then the Browns. Who knows what they're doing anymore? But yeah, it feels like it's just kind of grasping at straws now when it comes to what they're trying to do at quarterback as well. I mean, I like the Seahawks going out and getting Darnold, but who's he going to throw to now? I guess Jackson Smith and Jigba. He's a nice player, of course, but it just feels like they're another team that's kind of hitting the reset button a little bit here.
One other player whose name we have very rarely, we were so focused on Myles Garrett and to an extent Max Crosby, both of whom re-signed with their teams. Trey Hendrickson is still out there in the wind. I think I haven't seen anything in the last half an hour here that indicates that has changed. And I don't know, for the Bills or some other team, like I wonder if the Bengals might not be ready to come apart with these salaries that guys are getting on the market at the top of the class.
Yeah, are you asking if the Bills would be able to play
Yeah,
this?
I guess I'm asking two things. I didn't really get that direct there, like whether Hendrickson would be an idea worth pursuing. That's a top of market contract extension in waiting as well. And then there's the point about the Bengals being able to a week ago or 2 weeks ago, we're going to keep all our guys. And I mean, I don't know, they might just end up with Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow when it's all said and done.
Yeah, that's right. So I'll start with Hendrickson. Yeah, he's a fantastic player. You can go back and look at his numbers. It was crazy. I looked this morning, I didn't realize 17.5 sacks each of the last 2 years.
Right.
35 sacks over the last 2 years. He is really, really fantastic. What's the asking price? You'd have to give up assets, and then you'd have to give him the big contract as well. That's always a little bit trickier. But who knows? I mean, that is the type of player, like the Bills need a guy like this. They needed, again, whether it's a big name or not. You might not like Josh Palmer out there, and you're like, oh, my God, here's a guy who hasn't done much. I'd rather have DK Metcalf at $30 million a year. Right. That's fine. But what they needed was a separator. They needed a man-to-man beater, and that's what Josh Palmer has specialized in his career so far. You know what the Bills need on defense? They needed an edge rusher who can get to the quarterback and get the quarterback down. But, man, that is a really tough pool to swim in when you're talking that kind of money. Look at this money that Myles Garrett got. Look at the money Max Crosby got. Giving up assets and then giving him that kind of contract, that's a heavy lift, I think. But I would never rule it out after a few years ago when Brandon Beane said they didn't have much money and they signed Von Miller to a $120 million, 6-year contract. And as far as the Bengals are concerned, I feel a little bit bad here for Duke Tobin because I do think they intended to make Jamar Chase the highest paid non-quarterback in history. And then, oh, by the way, here comes Myles Garrett at $40 million with that designation. Are they going to give him $40 million? He said it on record. Now, look, if they settle at 35, no one's going to be upset in Cincinnati that he said it and they got to 35. But holy cow, how do you do that and also give T. Higgins his money? And, of course, I think this seems like it's going to be a separation with them and Trey Hendrickson.
Very good, Sal. Thanks for fitting us in today. We'll talk again soon.
All right, you guys got it. Thanks a lot.
That is Sal Capaccio on the West Shore Hotline. His appearances are brought to you by New York's only outlet liquor. When you need to stock up, it's the place to buy a case. What's your outlet?
Let's go to Bob next. Hi, Bob. No, Bob is not there.
Talk to Bob.
Let's not go to Bob.
I'm not going to talk to Bob.
What do you think of the Metcalf trade?
I think the fit is weird in Pittsburgh with that coordinator and no quarterback in place, and really what's available to you. Like if Aaron Rodgers is the best idea left out there, I don't think that's really going to work. I appreciate them being able to attract the player and pay the price and pay the contract and everything, but that looks like to me a weird fit. I just don't see, philosophically. Again, maybe they'll change. Maybe Arthur Smith. Well, I've never had a receiver like DK Metcalf, except he was in Atlanta and had a bunch of guys and still just didn't use them. So I think it's weird. If they bring Russell Wilson back because of his relationship with Metcalf, okay, you're treading water here. I recognize that there isn't a great quarterback answer out there for all these teams that have needs. I didn't even like Darnold. Might have been the best idea out there, and I wouldn't have liked that. I feel like if you didn't do that, you escaped, I think. But it's just weird to trade for a receiver of that caliber when you don't. Again, they know better than we know. Maybe they have something in the chamber ready to go. We just haven't seen it yet today. But there's just not a good option there. So I think it's a weird fit, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I wonder if Pickens gets moved. Talking to Andrew about Pickens, he was so negative, and it's happened before with the Steelers, and they've been a winning franchise anyway. But just it sounds like there's just a sideshow element with him. Mm-hmm. And here's the clue, though. I said this on ADP Chasing, my podcast earlier today. Watch to see who gets the number 14. So Pickens wears 14, and here comes DK Metcalf at a $30 million a year clip. No matter what the player is, who the player is, you got to go through the guy who has the number. You have to ask them, and they'll tell you what they want in exchange for the number. And sometimes it might be a car or a hot tub.
Or a watch that costs as much as a car.
A watch that costs as much as a car. Dinner.
A kitchen.
I feel like if I'm Pickens, my demand is simple. Give me $50 million. I'll do it. Right. I'll give you 14. We'll be friends. Right. For half your contract or thereabouts, I'll give you the number.
Yeah, I wonder how that works. There was Carolina. There was a guy, I forget, Roslovic, I think, was wearing the number Rantanen wears. So he got traded there a month or two ago and got paid by Rantanen to get the number, and now Rantanen went on his way, and the guy, I think it's Roslovic, I hope I have the right name, gets to keep whatever, and he got a watch and some other stuff.
Oh, it's his to keep, sure.
But Rantanen was there, I'm sure he didn't buy a house. He was probably living in a hotel. He goes to Dallas on Friday, and the guy that got paid off was like, that was cool, I got my number back.
Does he go get the number back?
He did. He was wearing it. He wore it yesterday. Yeah. Or Saturday, whenever they played.
The strategy to picking numbers now is to pick one that, maybe is the most worn number in the league. So if there is a trade, you're in position to capitalize.
I wonder what, if anything, the Steelers say to Metcalf about that. Don't
just wait.
Don't call him. Just hold on.
Just wait.
Just see. Just bide your time here.
Give us a week.
If he's here in July, then you begin negotiations.
Yeah, that's interesting. Kevin Adams will join us in just over an hour. The trade deadline came and went. The Sabres host Connor McDavid and the Oilers tonight. Pregame at 6. We'll look for your calls again after the break. 803-0550. The number. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog. WGR.
We know you can't
The Buffalo Bills are reportedly on the board as the legal tampering period in the NFL has gotten underway, and they are signing wide receiver Josh Palmer to a 3-year, $36 million deal with $18 million guaranteed. We do have more on this signing up at our website, WGR550.com. Quarterback Sam Darnold has his new team. He heads to Seattle on a 3-year, $100.5 million deal. $55 million of that is guaranteed. New England makes a big splash today. Defensive tackle Milton Williams, 4 years, $104 million with $63 million of that guaranteed. Arizona also playing ball with the defense. Edge rusher Josh Sweat, 4-year, $76.4 million. And the Commanders, they are trading for left tackle Laramie Tunsil. They are sending Houston a 2nd and 4th in 2026 and a 3rd-round pick in 2025. And then the Sabres, they are also in action tonight. They are at home against the Oilers. Pregame at 6, a 7 p.m. puck drop. It is going to be an ESPN Plus game, though, so if you do want to hear Dan and Rob, it's going to be right here on WGR. But do stay tuned, as before all of that, 5:30 will be GM Kevin Adams joining the show. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Headlines. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of business. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
I feel like with every single year, I feel like I've gotten better and the game slowed down just a little bit. So I'm just going to keep on trying to just get better day in, day out, year in and year out, and see how far I can take it. But I'm excited for the future, and I know I'm not where I want to be yet, but I'm excited just to try to reach that pinnacle and that mountaintop of what I could become as a player in the future.
Greg Rouso. So that was Saturday. Myles Garrett was yesterday, Sunday. Was Rouso, I mean, I was kind of off doing different things. Was Rouso signing it on Garrett for you? 20 mil?
Yeah, it wasn't a great sign. Because really, to line the whole thing up, it's why I conveniently would include Rouso in any of my trade speculation, is because I would rather have paid Garrett 35, or as it turns out 40, a year and offload Rouso. I wouldn't think that you would have 35 million and 25, as it turns out, around 20 for Rouso. That would have been a lot. So yeah, I think that didn't mean I thought Garrett was going to stay in Cleveland, but it did sort of take the Bills out of it on Saturday for me when I saw that. Yes,
seems right. Was Metcalf being traded to Pittsburgh it for you on Metcalf? Did you kind of rule it out once he was traded to Pittsburgh? You didn't think they were going to flip him?
I didn't expect that they would flip him. No. So, yeah, and that was, I don't know, that's more stunning than Garrett to me. Like, guys have drawn lines in the sand and talked tough and stuff for years. There's lots of examples, none of which spring right to mind, at least at rate at the level that Myles Garrett in this historic contract he got. But it's not the first time a guy and a team seemed like they were destined for a separation, maybe even an ugly one, and cooler heads prevail, and before any more games are even on the horizon, harmony is the operative word, and everything's fine.
Not Harmony Cobell.
No. Whoever, right? Sorry,
I'm sorry.
I was thinking that was a football player, and then I realized you're making a Severance reference.
I'm sorry.
So the Metcalf Seattle, like we talked about it just a few minutes ago. I don't get it.
Well, I mean that's a rebuild, mostly. It was interesting. The Seahawks had a pretty good team and a pretty good offense. Geno Smith's the most accurate quarterback in the league, and right when the season ended, the offensive coordinator was let go. That was kind of odd. It was a first-year partnership and didn't really seem like it was going badly, but 1 year into it, the coordinator's out, and they always seemed like a team for me. Now they definitely, well, I have to be careful because the Darnold thing, he is so young. They always seemed like a team to me that would be a good candidate for a quarterback in the draft, like Jackson Dart at 18 or wherever they pick, something like that. And that, can still be true, even though Darnold is younger, but it seemed to fit perfect with Smith there. He goes to Vegas. Maybe then Vegas will do that. Second, third round, something like that. The Jets could still draft a quarterback with Fields there. I mean, there'll be somebody with Fields, and it doesn't have to be a rookie, but it could be. If Rodgers goes to Pittsburgh, then they would be a candidate to do that. Even with Aaron Rodgers, almighty Aaron Rodgers on the team, I would think Pittsburgh is definitely a quarterback team in the draft. The Giants are still stuck because the Giants wanted Rodgers, everybody said, and maybe they'll still get him.
Maybe, yep.
But you have the Giants sitting at 3, and maybe that's Cam Ward. Tennessee could be a quarterback team, probably should be. What happens to Wilson? If Rodgers goes to Pittsburgh, then does Wilson go to Tennessee or to the Giants? There's a lot still to happen here.
And I don't think anyone... The Raiders got better. Not a lot. But like Geno Smith is a level of good that they have not had in a while. I don't think anyone else really should be sleeping well. I feel like and not that this would have been unforeseen. I mean, and nor should me saying it be unforeseen if you've been paying attention. Like the marketplace did not look good. And these players going like the Jets with Justin Fields, they absolutely better draft someone and hope he hits because I don't think that guy's going to be a long-term answer. I get the allure. The running is elite. The passing never has been. There's flashes of it, but that does not win you games consistently in the NFL. So him, Rodgers, even Darnold, who you're paying a premium there, and so therefore he's like maybe the safest, best pick of the litter, if you will, this offseason, and that wasn't. And it's just my opinion. I never would have bought. I never would have wanted to buy that. I think any team that avoided that, that's the best you could do is avoid paying that contract. Even it's only for 3 years. It's maybe. For me, anyway, I want to say much more modest than I thought it would be. I was thinking 5 years, closer to 40, 45, like the market rate. He's a free agent, like somebody will blow him out of the water. And it seems either no one did or he didn't care because he liked the fit in Seattle, and I don't know what that is. Because he needs a lot to go right, I think, to be successful. And I don't know that Seattle is ready-made to have that work for him the way it did in Minnesota. So I just think it's a bad year to need a quarterback is the bottom line, I think. If you're wandering around looking for a guy, this year's class, both in the draft and because there's just not a lot of depth in the draft, at least as it sits now. Some of these guys, somebody may end up turning into a gem. Who knows? But just didn't look good going in, and here we are the day of it, and you're going to tell me the Steelers' answer for why they traded for DK Metcalf and gave him that contract is that they're going to sign Aaron Rodgers to be their quarterback? I'm not expecting that to work very well. It'll have its moments, because just like he had his moments this year with the Jets, but consistently, at his age right now, it's not happening.
803-0550 is the number. The Bills sign former Chargers wide receiver Josh Palmer to a 3-year contract worth up to $36 million, $18 million guaranteed. Palmer is described as, I'm not saying this is subjective, but objectively a good separator, route runner, that kind of player. He will play, I think, basically a role for the Bills, though. And that might not line up in your head with that kind of money. But I think this is going to be a role player. I think this is going to be somebody that, depending on matchups, injuries, different things, they're going to want down the field and to do that thing that really they don't have anybody else currently that's really good at it. For me, this doesn't change Mac Hollins at all. He is a free agent. And we'll see what his 31 catches gets him on the market, if he's even looking. But I don't think Palmer comes in to replace Hollins at all. They're different players.
No, he replaces Cooper to me. And Cooper, there were games where Cooper was healthy. He was healthy enough to play. I don't know, once he had that wrist injury, I don't know how healthy he ever really was. He wore some sort of a brace on that thing almost the rest of the year, I think, after he hurt it pretty early in his tenure here with the Bills. But Palmer is my Cooper replacement. I thought all along they would need one. That was the thing. Everybody eats. They still did pivot to making that move for Cooper. So heading into this offseason, I frequently said in here, they're going to have to find their way to someone that can give them, what is that? 50% of the snaps might be like a high for Cooper. I don't know if Palmer has to just settle into that smaller role or if it'll be a little bit bigger than that. But Hollins, if he comes back, that's why Cooper didn't play all the time. There's only so many outside spots. If Coleman and Cooper and Hollins were all healthy, then there's your rotation. Because Shakir is almost always going to be on the field. One of the tight ends, if not two, are often going to be on the field. So there's just only so many snaps to go around. So if Hollins comes back, then I think you're looking at the same kind of timeshare that you had when Cooper was here with the other two guys on the outside, Coleman and Hollins.
Which is what I expected. I just didn't process how much that a player like Josh Palmer might cost you. But the money has exploded again. Funny, like talking with Sal, and he made a point about that, just how you can't believe the money right now, whatever he said. And haven't you been hearing that for what feels like your whole life? 30 years? How long was it, if you're old enough to be able to tell us, or maybe I should, how long was it that the money didn't seem incredible? I mean, it's relative, right? I mean, $1 million a year happened in sports, and it was mind-blowing in the 80s. $1 million a year. That seemed pretty incredible. Now you're the last guy on the roster,
right,
making $1 million.
Right.
Like you're nobody. Here's a guy catching 38 passes, and he gets 3 years, like Samuel, right? Didn't Samuel get 3 years at 8 each?
Yep.
At 12 each, up to $12 million a year. Kind of insane. I don't love it. I get it. I don't love it. It just feels to me too much like another okay guy that floats around, which is what we did a lot of last year. That's what everybody they brought in last year was. Not included Coleman to a point too, right? He was the 8th receiver picked. So it's more of that for me. They did win a lot of games. They do have Josh Allen. I don't think this has to be bad, but this is not a guy that
transforms your passing offense at all.
At
right?
all.
That's what the Metcalf idea. The reason you get like the allure of that. I mean, the money is because you're changing maybe to an extent who you are, and with Josh Allen as your quarterback, I think we're always going to, some of us anyway, are always going to be here for that. Go get him this guy, and I'm going to throw it all over you, and good luck stopping me. All my other guys are going to benefit because you're distracted by this freak who can run so fast and just run you over, run through you if you need him to, go up and get everything. He does it all. That's an offense-changing player. Palmer's a guy that has a skill set that the Bills were lacking. Really, I think the Cooper comp totally works. Again, he's not pedigreed like Cooper, a former first-round pick, 1,000-yard receiver, 100-catch player in the league. Like he's been a bona fide number one, Cooper, before. Palmer has never been that, but his skill set probably matches pretty well what Cooper had by the time he got here. I can beat man coverage. I know how to get open against zone. I'm gonna create separation. I'm gonna create room. But am I dynamic? No. I don't think I've increased that part of my team. I didn't become more dangerous. Maybe I'll be better because Cooper, it seemed like, was on his last legs here. We'll see what free agency holds for him here as we're only a few hours into it today. But I didn't become more dangerous. But that doesn't mean I didn't improve. But I don't think I didn't change who I am at all.
We'll look again for your thoughts at 803-0550. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog, WGR.
More of Schopp and the Bulldog coming up.
Bills to sign Josh Palmer, 4 years with the Chargers, formerly of the University of Tennessee and born in Toronto. Kind of went backwards there. Third-round pick in 2021. It looks like, not official. This is the legal tampering period. The official signings get announced, later in the week? Wednesday, is it, when they become official?
Yes.
But I think you can probably trust this. Here is Glenn with us. Hi, Glenn.
Good afternoon, guys. He's actually listed as being born in Brampton, but you're right, Mike. He's from Toronto area. Two things I like about him when I watched a bunch of Chiefs games last year. Number one, and you might have mentioned it, I just got out of work, but how he separates well, and how many games that we discussed last year or this past year where we're saying that, Josh had to thread the needle to make a pass or whatever. And I think this guy's going to be a big asset in terms of that. Number two, I think how well he gets off press coverage, too. I noticed that watching a few of the games, especially the game I believe was against Denver, right? Just have your comments on it. Thanks.
Yeah, well, I mean that's pretty much it. Those are the attributes, and that's why I like the Cooper comp. Like I wanted a Cooper replacement. I thought it was called for, and the Bills took until October to pivot to feeling like they needed an upgrade to their everybody each receiver room, and so they did it. And Cooper, being a free agent, I wasn't super interested in bringing him back. So this is a younger version of that, I think. Similar size. Some of the skill set sounds the same. I mean, Cooper's a much more accomplished player earlier in his career than Palmer's ever been, but I think it works for me as a comparison and as a replacement.
Biggest game he had this year, 6 for 78. Against Kansas City. It was the only game with that many yards or more than 4 catches. Pro Football Reference has him as born in Toronto, so if he wasn't, somebody should get on that. Where were you born?
Lackawanna, technically.
The hospital was in Lackawanna.
Yes.
But your family lived
in West Seneca when I was born.
So that's what you say? Where were you born? You probably say Buffalo, generally, but
yeah,
Lackawanna's the answer? It's where the hospital is?
The hospital, yeah, it was there. Yes.
I was born in Kenmore.
Kenmore Mercy?
Kenmore Mercy. But my family lived on Grand Island. I've never thought to say I was born in Kenmore.
Right.
Unless it's like to name the hospital.
Right.
You're talking to somebody that would care about what hospital it was.
Yeah.
How is that supposed to work?
Where do you get brought home to? I think is where you...
That's you were born? Where you were born?
Yeah.
So,
in this
Grand Island.
Grand Island, West Seneca, Brampton is what the Wikipedia page says for... Which,
But where was the hospital?
It's close enough to Toronto.
They do have their own hospitals in Brampton. I'm quite sure.
I would guess that.
Why wouldn't it say Brampton?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, this says Brampton.
That says Brampton. This says Toronto. He has no nicknames at Pro Football Reference. He should have 2, like everybody else. 2 that you've never heard, or at least one of which you've never heard. We need to get on that, too. Somebody needs to get cracking.
Right.
Over there at PFR. Kevin Adams, who was born in Washington, D.C., will join us at 5:30. I think we looked this up once. One of 2 players, maybe 3, ever born in the District of Columbia.
I didn't know this about him.
No?
I feel like I know him as Chautauqua County.
Washington.
All right.
He'll join us at 5:30, and pregame for Sabres Oilers. Downtown is at 6. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog here. This is WGR.
550. The official voice of the Buffalo Bills, WGR Sports Radio 550 and WGR550.com. This is a Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update.
The legal tampering period in the NFL got underway today at noon, and the Bills are reportedly on the board as they sign wide receiver Josh Palmer to a 3-year, $36 million deal with $18 million of that guaranteed. And we do have more on this signing up at our website, WGR550.com. Some of the other more notable moves from today. Quarterback Sam Darnold, he has his new home. It is Seattle. 3 years, $100.5 million deal, $55 million of that guaranteed. New England goes and gets defensive tackle Milton Williams, 4 years, $104 million with $63 million of that guaranteed. Arizona also makes a splash on defense. Josh Sweat, 4-year deal worth $76.4 million. And then the Commanders, they are trading for left tackle Laramie Tunsil. They are sending Houston a 2nd and 4th in 2026 and a 3rd in 2025. And then for the Sabres, they are in action tonight at home against the Oilers. Pregame at 6 for a 7 p.m. puck drop. It is an ESPN Plus game, though, so if you do want to hear Dan and Rob, it's going to be right here on WGR. But before all of that, do stay tuned. It's coming up in just about a half hour at 5:30. General Manager Kevin Adams will join the show. It's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of business. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
It's a real jerk.
And the Bulldog.
I'm sort of anal retentive, OCD kind of whack job.
On WGR.
Joshua Palmer. Everybody. 3 years, $36 million, or up to that amount. Right? It's football. It maybe usually or almost never gets to that amount. But that's what it says right here on X. Bulldog told me always trust it. So that's what we've got.
No. I said you look at the guaranteed money and just take a year and probably $10 million off of the total.
Is that what you said?
Probably.
Who was I talking to that said the other thing?
Eventually, I did get to that.
That wasn't you that told me that?
Yeah.
So what do you think? 803-0550 to let us know. On one hand, you've got a guy that's really not done very much in 4 years in the league. One season of more than 39 catches, and that season was 73. I'm not trying to twist this in any way. 10 touchdowns in 4 years, not huge. Has never been somebody you wanted to start in fantasy football. I said that about Shakir. Maybe Shakir did a little better than that. Not a lot better, doesn't score, but gives you a certain 12 to 15 point fantasy floor. I don't know. Palmer, to me, will struggle to get there, I think. I would think Shakir would still be probably more productive, and I also don't expect Shakir to just go way up for the player he is from what happened this year. So there's what you've got. Sort of starting in that way of speaking. On one hand, only the production is kind of down here, but the traits seem to make it understandable why the Bills would want this player. Separation, that word again, and how Bills receivers struggled to separate this year, and Palmer is thought to be good at it, and you have somebody who can get down the field, not a guy you throw the ball to underneath, and the Bills have plenty of that. So maybe it'll work. It's just the money, if you pay attention only somewhat, the money can maybe blow your mind here. Figuring out what that is per catch, don't do it.
Right.
But we're at a point in time in the NFL where cap numbers are rising, seriously, and it's a great time to be a free agent.
Yeah. I feel like this deal, I recognize that the annual average value of it, 12, is $4 million more than what Samuel was last year, but similar enough, 3 for $8 million a year. I feel like this is this year's version of that, basically. And Samuel had better years than that coming in than Palmer has had, but the money, I don't know. I'm not really the least bit bothered about the money. It's whether or not I've got a guy that is going to help me. And I think the skill set, I needed to replace Cooper. I wanted to do that probably on a moderate contract, most realistically, sure. I got lost in the DK Metcalf idea as much as anyone did because it's intoxicating. Like, oh, this is a very good to great player at the position, and it's a true number one, and wow, that's a game changer kind of guy. This is not that. This is a guy to replace Cooper, who is very modest part of the Bills' offense last year, but still needed to be replaced. Like, he was a guy they went out and got after they got a look at their group through a handful of games in the season and recognized they had some shortcomings, wanted to address that, did. Paid a price to do it, third-round pick. Here comes Cooper. Okay. Palmer, I think, replaces that. Cooper's a free agent. I didn't expect him to come back. I'd be very curious to see what the marketplace does for him. He's had a very good career to this point, but some word started coming out late last week that people observing him last year with the Bills, maybe he's done.
Yeah.
So
it looked kind of like that.
Palmer at 25, even though he's never been, what Cooper was supposed to be when the Bills went and got him, I think the skill set translates. To me, it works as a Cooper replacement at a pretty modest cost, all things considered. So I'm all right. Like, it's not a dramatic move, but I think a necessary one. They needed to get a professional wide receiver to supplement what they have, and they did it.
803-0550 if you want to share your thoughts with us. Here's Rich next. Hi, Rich.
Gentlemen, good evening. Bulldog, you'll be happy. Obviously, it's going to be daylight when you leave work.
Yes, I look forward to it.
My question is this, gentlemen. If this guy is, quote-unquote, an up-and-comer, why didn't the Chargers retain him? I mean, do they have a lot of dead cap money releasing Bosa? I mean, if this guy is supposed to be, I know he's been marginally used, but if he's, quote-unquote, an up-and-comer, wouldn't the Chargers want to hold on to him? I don't think they have that many wide receivers to let this guy just walk.
Whom do you keep quoting up-and-comer?
Yeah, I'm not sure that we even used that phrasing one time. I don't know that this player it's not established what he and who he is.
Yeah, I mean, right. He's been in the league 4 years.
Bulldog, you made a good compliment, or I should say good statement. He could be a potential Cooper replacement. Yes, he's younger. Yes, he's kind of unknown, but my question is this. Chargers with Herbert, why didn't they hold on to him?
His contract was up, and he didn't do a lot. So it wasn't.
Then we sign him.
Right. It wasn't that his, he wasn't a cut or has anything to do with dead cap. He was just a guy, third wide receiver on their team for the most part in 4 years, and that guy moves on.
I think it's a fine question to ask. Like, what motivates the team that's letting the guy go to not pay him what he could get on the open market? Well, economics, different priorities.
Gabe Davis.
Just as simple as that, right? So, that's a reason why I wouldn't get too excited about it. Like, I'm not mad the Bills signed this player, but it's not a needle mover, really. It fills, I think, exactly the hole created by Cooper moving on. And that's it. And that, I think, should include the production you got from Cooper while he was here. Palmer has not demonstrated that he's someone that is going to catch that many more. He's got the one really good year with 70-plus catches in it, but there's never been a lot of touchdowns. So I think the comp to Cooper as a Bill, not Amari Cooper of the Cleveland Browns or the Dallas Cowboys or the Raiders, where I think all three places he maybe had 1,000-yard seasons and 100-catch type years. Like, that's not who Cooper was by the time he got to the Bills. And I don't think that's who Josh Palmer is, which is why I'm going to just live with this comparison until I get talked out of it. I think that's exactly what they did. They filled the hole. And skill set-wise, it's enough of a match. But it's not somebody that's going to show up and be your leading receiver.
I have no issue at all with the comparison. It makes sense to me. Palmer was 2 to 3 catches a game for the Chargers. Cooper was exactly 2.5 catches a game for the Bills. But it becomes a question of how much do I want to spend on that? And I can say it's really almost like making an excuse. by saying, well, look, I mean, there's just money to burn now. So do whatever you want. You'd rather not have it come down to do whatever you want. And it probably doesn't in real life. But was Amari Cooper worth a third? No, in the end, he was not. I liked that they did it. I liked the gamble, but they lost. They lost the bet. I mean, Cleveland gets a third-round pick in a losing season, and the Bills got 20 catches. So, whoops, But again, that happens. I would have done it. And here, if he is about the same, if you want to say, you should expect about the same production, which I think is probably right, do I want to spend $12 million a year on that? I don't think I do. And this is like flashbacks to last year, but, well, not exactly. When you do this, it's one less other thing you can do. This was your bet this year. This was the choice. And so whether that's a receiver in the draft or a different option, okay, this is where we ended up. This is what it costs. It just doesn't feel great for me at $12 million a year. And like you said, I think, where the caller makes a point is, well, if he's so good, why didn't the Chargers keep him? He wasn't that good. Davis was more productive for the Bills than Palmer was for the Chargers. It's different roles and different systems and all of that. And kind of everybody wanted to see the Bills let Davis go. And how did that go? Win. He didn't do anything really for his new team. So that's a fair way of looking at it, which is basically a long way of saying what we've been saying all day, which is don't expect big things.
Right. Which is fine. And, it's more, I think, a commentary on the league that a guy that you would describe that way rates that contract. But that's the league. In a season when the free agent list is pretty rough. Yeah, sure. Yes, that's a part of it too. Yes. So, that's it. Yeah, I mean, you're not gonna catch me here. Amazing! I appreciate the acumen of the people that have been stumping for this. Sal mentioned them, and we had a caller, the first person maybe that got through today, mentioned how Joe Marino, who I think very highly of, had targeted this player and had written about his attributes and why he'd be a good fit. And I've not combed through that now, look back on it. But I would be surprised if he's expecting this guy to smash as a Bills receiver. He just simply fills a spot, and has a skill set that they need. But I'm expecting modest production. That's what I think his track record tells you he is.
Thanks, Rich. Here's Patrick next. Hello, Patrick.
Hey guys, seeing the news of this deal brought up a couple of things for me. The first one was just another example of how there's this kind of interesting contractual phenomenon in the NFL where a solid wide receiver 3 with upside pulls in as much money as, say, the 8th or 9th best running back in the NFL.
Right.
I think eventually there's going to be a correction there. I know it's not a totally fair comparison, but I just find that to be, we're going to talk about James Cook getting $15 million for the next however long, and then you just kind of get this guy, and it's 3 for 36, The other thing is just kind of looking back, thinking about free agents every offseason for so many years, looking back at this sort of middle class of wide receivers. There's a couple of examples like Robert Woods years ago or Jacoby Myers recently who seem to return value on these, this tier 2 sort of contract level. But in the whole, I just don't see this type of contract returning value very often. I think you could probably find, 50 examples for every one success story of these guys that get, 30, 40, $50 million and turn out to be a true standout for their team. So
how about Curtis Samuel, Patrick?
Yeah, exactly. There's so many Curtis Samuels and Gabe Davises, and I don't know, it just feels like, I think one of you, maybe Mike, you had said, it feels like we're just okay, we've got this money now, and then we immediately sort of take this guy that, he could be a nice depth piece, but I'd be surprised if he was a super meaningful part of our offense. Last thing I'll just say really quickly is a friend of mine made a good point that looking at our receivers under contract for 2026, I think we have 2 under contract, including Shavers. So maybe this was a little bit of a long-term hedge against Samuel as well. So thanks, guys.
All right, thank you. I wonder if I'll draft Palmer. I tend to not. As a Charger, I tended to not.
Doesn't sound like, yeah.
It is Josh Allen, though. I'm assuming he approved of this idea.
I would figure, yeah. But I don't know. He's been out there living his best life.
Busy. He's been busy lately.
Been busy.
Hard to reach. I've had a tough time reaching him.
Bachelor week.
Yep.
I shouldn't say that like I know he's been doing stuff all week but he had the golf outing, and I saw footage of him playing golf with some of the same people a day or two after that. So I feel like he's had himself a time.
I can't talk after the last 72 hours of my life. Very similar, probably.
Oh yeah, really? Yeah.
Traveling to Philadelphia, I drive. Alan probably flies private, but I drive to my places.
Mm-hmm.
And we went out to eat twice. It was great. Second time was really great.
Good.
Nice place. But he might do better. I don't know.
Probably.
Park in Philadelphia. I'm not sure I've ever had a more fun restaurant experience than this park right downtown in Philly. So, doing okay.
Yeah.
Then yesterday, get up, drive to Jersey.
You're the youngster of the group, aren't you?
I think I am the youngest guy in the league, yes. What is that supposed to mean? I don't like your tone right now. I think I don't like your tone.
I'm just merely pointing out that,
I can't win on this one. I'm either young, which is supposed to be a compliment, but I hang out with guys who are 70, or I don't know what.
I didn't mean, I was not judging there at all. I apologize for the pejorative tone if there indeed was one that you perceived.
If you're upset, I'm sorry. Go on.
Yeah. I was merely pointing out that you were hanging out with a bunch of old guys all weekend.
Yeah. I know. Well, Andy's son is like 20.
Oh, okay.
But
well, sure.
Really, it's Andy's team.
That brings the average age down quite a bit.
Way down.
So it's not that big a group.
Way down.
One 20-year-old really has a dramatic impact on the overall there.
It's a fantasy league where most of the people in the league have been in it for a long time, and the league started in 1981.
Whew. Yeah.
So there you go. There's your answer.
Yeah, right. Wow. Well, good. What made this restaurant so great? I don't know if you're prepared to take more questions about it. I'm curious. I've never heard of the place. I don't have a lot of experience in Philly.
What makes a great restaurant? Check all the boxes. Fun vibe, right? Comfortable, fun atmosphere. Food is great. You just feel good.
Early bird special. All you can eat Alaskan king crab legs for the older clientele that you were with.
Yeah. And they only had Fanta. The only drink option was orange Fanta.
Fanta's a very good pull there.
No, just location, which contributes to atmosphere.
Yeah.
Outstanding. Friend knew the manager, so we got free dessert.
Oh, that's always a plus.
But that can't count.
No, okay. All right.
You can't count that.
Yeah.
And you can bet awards in Pennsylvania. Oh, I got to show you something. Do I want to do this right on the air?
Definitely not.
Okay.
So go ahead.
But I didn't do it. I didn't do it for all my time grousing about how you can't bet awards in New York State. I got there and I was doing other things. I'm like, you know what? I want to put in more money. I don't really have more money right now, and just. But I looked at. I only looked at baseball, but you can bet
MVP, Cy Young, that kind of thing.
Yep. Huh. So maybe there will come a morning where I'll drive to. That fireworks shop just across into
Fort Erie. This now. You had
awards.
your chance. You should have done it while you were there.
I did have my chance, and I didn't do it. You're right. We've got a lot of movement all around the league. The quarterback news today. So Seattle went on Friday night and traded Geno Smith. They replaced Geno Smith with Sam Darnold. I thought it reminded me of like when the Diggs trade happened and we weren't proven right. But why the timing on the Geno trade? They had to have this in their pocket.
Right, the Darnold, yeah, I think so.
Unless, they were just betting because they didn't want – Davis Maddock made this point on ADP chasing that they didn't want it to be too obvious that they were making a move. I don't know.
Look,
this was predictable today.
Yeah. The whole thing is kind of weird to me, though. Like, he's younger. I know what his year looked like. But – I don't know. I feel like Geno Smith, Sam Darnold, like get push. I don't know. And even maybe advantage Geno aside from age. How much older than Darnold is he? He's the only
9 years.
That much? Holy crap!
Joe Burrow is older than Sam Darnold.
That is incredible. That I've heard the thing about Burrow. You said it earlier today. Geno, because that's only. Oh, that's the E.J. Manuel draft, okay, right? It's the same draft. So that's the 2013. All right, that tracks a little bit better than I thought it would.
Geno Smith turns 35 in October. Darnold is going to be 28 in June. So it's more like 7 to 8 years, okay. not 10.
But Smith has had at least, since he got to Seattle and sort of reclaimed his career, he's had year over year, like better. I don't know, I feel like he's a safer bet even at his age. Just let it play out. Darnold, it's modest. It's only 3 years, so it's not like you're married to him forever. But I don't know. I'm still nervous about just that one. It just went perfectly 1 year in Minnesota.
I agree.
Are you going to buy that? And if I'm Seattle, I would have just kept going with Geno until I found my next idea, which could have even been, I don't know, Jalen Milroe in the second or third round this year. But instead, they pivot, and it's a weird pivot.
There might be a deeper reason, like Smith has been a great story, and he's been really good. Not just a great story, but really good. But there have been times when, like, he goes off on guys, Geno Smith. He does not hold back with his opinions on teammates and stuff, and it seems like the kind of thing that could get old. Not just did he get old, but that could get old. So just like when it was with, doesn't have to be the Seahawks, but with Russell Wilson, you're just kind of, it doesn't feel right. Maybe there's a little bit of that in this with the Seahawks. But it was not a bad team, and they've traded their starting quarterback and their number one receiver here.
And released their their second, and a very long tenured player there in Tyler Lockett, too. So, and then went for the best quarterback on the market.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But it's not even necessarily an upgrade.
Right. It all just seems like, what are we doing here? I'm not sure. I'm having trouble making sense of some of the things that are happening, including Metcalf going to Pittsburgh, who right now also doesn't have a quarterback. And who are they going to get that is going to help you make that work?
Well, Rodgers is the favorite.
Good God.
Rodgers is the speculation. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog here. Sabres GM Kevin Adams joins us next to reflect on the weekend and the trade deadline with us. Sabres and Oilers pregame at 6 here on WGR.
Sabres pregame coming up in just about a half hour as the team is at home to take on the Oilers. Again, pregame coming up at 6 for a 7 p.m. puck drop. But coming up before that, Sabres general manager Kevin Adams will join the show next. A reminder, though, for tonight's game, it is an ESPN Plus game, so if you do want to hear Dan and Rob, it's going to be right here on WGR. Around the NFL, the illegal tampering period has begun, and the Bills did get themselves on the board. Reportedly, they are signing wide receiver Josh Palmer to a 3-year, $36 million deal with $18 million guaranteed. We do have more up on the signing up at our website, WGR550.com. And some of the other news from today, quarterback Sam Darnold, he has his new team. He heads to Seattle on a 3-year, $100.5 million deal. $55 million of that is guaranteed. Defensive tackle Milton Williams heading to New England, 4 years, $104 million contract. And the Commanders, they are trading for left tackle Laramie Tunsil. They are sending Houston to do this, a second and a fourth in 2026 and a third in 2025. That's Paddock Chevrolet Sports Headlines. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of business. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
The Sabres host Edmonton tonight. Connor McDavid, Mike Schopp, and the Bulldog here. We'll have Kevin Adams in just a moment. I've got Adam Schefter. The Eagles are trading Kenny Pickett to Cleveland. Have you thought about him at all?
No.
As a potential Week 1 starter in the NFL?
No.
Maybe I'm asking Kevin Adams.
It's on, it sounds like.
Kenny Pickett to Cleveland. Kevin, thanks for joining us. How are you?
I'm all right. How are you guys?
Good, thank you. Hasn't been that long since we've spoken, but of course the occasion of the trade deadline has come and gone now. Apologies for asking you a question that you probably answered over and over Friday and through the weekend, if you don't mind. Just what's your assessment of what the action around the league was? And then, of course, we'll get to your part in it, in the Cousins trade.
Well, it was busy for everyone. I mean, I think I didn't look at how many deals compared to other years, but it was a lot going on, and there were a lot of big players obviously moving around, which I think for fans is exciting. It's not an easy day for 32 general managers, that's for sure. It's just the nature of it. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a little tricky this year also. There's a lot of teams that are still kind of, as you got right to the deadline, trying to figure out exactly what they were going to do, which I think is why you saw a lot of things happen even right up to the deadline, because teams are still, when I'm on the phone with them, still figuring out, and we're going to see how tonight's game goes and then make a decision tomorrow. So trying to get themselves as close to the deadline as they could before they kind of shifted gears into what they were going to do.
Take us through as far back as you want to go on the Norris-Cousins swap. As it turned out, there's other parts too, and we can fill all that in as well. But is this one of these things that there were seeds planted months or weeks ago, or did it just sort of come up as the deadline was approaching, Kevin?
Yeah, I guess, these things certainly don't happen overnight, so there was a lot of conversations. But what I kind of started thinking a lot about over the last couple months was, okay, what is really going on with our team, and how do we approach the trade deadline, philosophically? What are our goals? What are we trying to do? That was the first step, and that's, typically for me it would be maybe right after Christmas and, early January. And, I felt strongly that if we need to find a way to help make our team better and really be honest and look at the core of our group and say, if there's an opportunity to do something, we have to be willing to do that. And hockey trades, certainly at the trade deadline, aren't the easiest, things to be able to accomplish. There's plenty of teams that are, maybe interested, but they want to wait till the summer, because they don't want to take something off the roster. But I wasn't interested in futures and picks and prospects for our core guys. And as we started to work on this more and more, I was really focused on, okay, if we're going to change the mix of our group up, what are we trying to get? And what I was focused mostly on is if there's a way to get a centerman here that we felt could be, a 200-foot kind of all-situation player, that was the target. And I certainly didn't want to go after someone that was either unproven or, maybe at the end of his career. I was looking for someone that could grow with us. And, as you start to hear what I said, there's not that many guys you circle in on. So Norris became the target that we had. We watched him very closely, as you can imagine, for a few weeks. A lot of conversations, negotiations going on. And I want to make it clear, like, Dylan Cousins is a really good hockey player and not a guy that I wanted to move or was just looking to move. It was more that, okay, if you're gonna go after and you're gonna get something, you're gonna have to give up something, and that's ultimately what happens in hockey trades, and they aren't easy to make.
One thing I'm curious about, and I don't know if we've talked with you obviously numerous times and going all the way back to Darcy Regier and everybody in between about these trade deadline moves. One question I don't think I've ever thought to ask you or any of your predecessors is, because the medical on this player, Norris, is maybe the biggest question mark with the shoulder surgeries, and can he play, can he stay healthy? He's obviously very productive when he is in the lineup, and hopefully for your sake and his sake, he's past all that. What kind of access to that? Like, do your doctors talk to their doctors? How much do you get to know as you're preparing to make? Because there's obviously huge stakes here, big contracts going both ways here. I'm just wondering how much homework there is to be done, and can you do on a player's medical situation?
Yeah, it's a great question, Bulldog, and just full transparency. Like, the way I look at these things is, you want to talk about first, okay, like, what is this as a hockey trade, and as a player on your team, what does it look like? And then you're looking at all the other things that are going on. That could be contracts, that could be injury history, and certainly with Josh, he does have a history. And I said to Steve Staios, the very first time we discussed this, that if we ever got to a place where we were getting closer to a deal, there is no way we would be able to move further without being able to see the file, have our doctors, have our ownership completely on board, and they were great with that. So ultimately, the file was sent before any trade was agreed. Our head doctor, Les Bassan, who oversees ours and the Bills, was able to get into the file, look at everything, talk to his surgeon. He called me, gave his, comfort that he was fully on board, talked to Terry Pagula, made sure he was fully on board. So that all happened. And not a lot of time to spare, to be honest with you, but those are very important decisions that you have to make sure everybody's on board before you make a big decision like we did.
That is a really good question, if I don't say so myself. And I wonder, I guess, what does that mean for the player? Does the player then, in your case as a player, Kevin, like your medicals are available to the entire NHL, like to every team once you sort of enter the league?
No, not exactly. It has to be requested, and then that it goes from doctor to doctor. So it's not like it's being, sent around or anything.
It's not tweeted.
Yeah, right. It's their doctor to our doctor in conversation. So That's how it's handled. So it's certainly not something that's out there publicly or even, getting into other people's hands. And I mean, it's similar to what we went through with the Jack Eichel situation, before we agreed on trade with Vegas. That was the same process that they went through, and they had to get their doctors on board. So this isn't something that's unfamiliar to me or to, right. It happens all the time. But, when you're talking about a trade deadline, and you don't necessarily have the time to get a player into town, have a physical. That's why that type of thing needs to happen, and the files need to be sent and looked at by the people that are experts.
So moving forward, I know you talked at length on Friday, and then I know Lindy, I think either before the Florida game or after the Florida game, in talking about Norris, referred to him as someone who has the potential to be a number one center for you. And I wonder what that means moving forward to Tage Thompson. We've seen him move out to the wing this year. In part, there was some injury consideration, I believe anyway, to be the case. And there was also there was a point early in the year where Lindy was very frank about what he needed from both. Well, Cousins was in this conversation too. He and Thompson as the top two centers on the team, and whether they could do all the things that were needed to play the system the way he wants it played. I guess I'm saying a lot of words here. I'm wondering what Norris being referred to that way by the coach means to Thompson's future at center ice, if there is one.
Well, I think it's still a little bit to be determined on Tage. He's comfortable playing both positions, and that's, the versatility is a bonus for us. But, I will say it first started when he did have his injury, him bumping over the wing more than anything. It was just because he was struggling taking faceoffs. And it looked like he got freed up a little bit over on the wing. He was skating a little better. And, people that understand hockey at a higher level realize that sometimes at center, you're working so hard defensively that, it does take away from maybe your energy and some of the things you can do on the offensive side of the puck. So, Tage slid over the wing, and then he kind of got it going. And I think Lindy just was comfortable leaving him there, letting Kulich kind of get comfortable playing, pretty important minutes for a young player. So that's how that started. I think it's still to be determined exactly how it'll shake out. I know that we're comfortable moving Tage back to the middle, but I do think Norris coming in, he's an excellent face-off guy. He plays, first power play, he's a top penalty killer. He plays, this is a guy you want on the ice against the other team's best line. So I do think it gives Lindy the ability to either slide Tage back into the middle and then change your matchups, or, just move Tage over to the wing and then have him Norris there. So I think that's something that the coaches will figure out. But that was part of the equation here too, is, with the emergence of Kulich and, I've really liked McLeod in kind of a solid third line center role. That was something we talked a lot about as we went into the deadline as well.
Just a couple more for you, Kevin. Kevin Adams with us on the Western Hotline. The Sabres host Edmonton tonight, pregame on WGR, coming up in about 20 minutes. So you got Zucker done. We had our conversation with you about Zucker and Greenway, and you said to us on the air, I'd like to get them both signed. And then you did. So we felt pretty cool because you told us, we could say to people, Kevin Adams told us that he wants to get these players signed. How did it go with Zucker? It seemed touch and go there, and there was an injury. Just maybe you could tell us something about how the last few hours went as he was ultimately re-signed.
Yeah, well, I did make it clear to both of these guys that they were guys we wanted back, and I wanted to make sure they wanted to be back. And I do think it's an important thing for everyone to know that these are two guys that would have been sought after in the if they had hit the free agency market July 1st, and they both wanted to stay. And it's frustrating where we are right now. And I think they would say that. I would say that. I'll be the first one to say that. Be held accountable for this. But here's two guys that said we're closer than people realize, and I want to see this through. I want to be part of the solution. And so I think that was how it had to start. And then it was, can we get this contract done? What makes sense for us, makes sense for them, get it across the finish line. So these things are always harder before they get done. It's probably why it went to very, very late there before we were able to get final touches on the Zucker one especially. But big guys to have, someone that Rasmus Dahlin made clear to me that he leans on from a leadership standpoint. They have a big influence in our locker room. And, I just felt like with a lot of young players that these were critical guys to get done and be part of this moving forward.
I know we'll find out more about this in the next hour and a half or so, but how is your team, like, illness-wise? 'Cause I know we had some call-ups on Saturday in Florida, and some guys were down and had been down even prior to Saturday with illness. Is that still ripping through the team?
It is. It's been a rough year, and I know it's been rough, for just everyone in the world, like just more sickness and stuff going on. But we've had stretches this year where guys have been hit, and then where they've been like down and out 4, 5, 6 days, not leaving their bed, and losing 10, 12 pounds. And when you're a professional athlete, losing 12 pounds is not easy to just all of a sudden jump right back and play. So we will, as of the moment, unless something changes, Greenway should be able to go tonight, which is big for us. Hopefully, Zucker should be able to go tonight. Kulik's still sick. He's out, but improving. And then there's a few other guys that are, I wouldn't say in great spot, but they're going to try to play. So it's just, these things are hard. Yeah, teams go through it, but it just seems like this year it's been a little worse than other years.
Good luck tonight, Kevin. Thanks again for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
You're welcome. Kevin Adams, GM of the Sabres, and Connor McDavid's Edmonton Oilers, and Jeff Skinner's Edmonton Oilers.
That's right.
Tonight really should be the night he takes a shootout attempt. So I can settle this thing with Sneaky Joe. I could use $50. Couldn't you? What do you mean? What's that face? Could you use $50?
Sure. I'm about to dismiss it, and then I thought, I don't know. Like, if I'm the Edmonton coach, we get to a shootout. He's not one of my top 3, but if it goes a little longer, yeah, maybe you got to look at it.
It has to go longer, but that does happen in hockey.
It does, yeah.
I need that to happen one of these years. Josh Norris's father played in the NHL, but I don't remember him. Didn't play much, 20 games. But Dwayne Norris.
Yeah, don't know it.
2 years on the Nordiques, and then one with Anaheim. The end of the Nordiques, so Sundin, Sakic, Wendell Clark.
Mid-90s.
Mark Crawford's Nordiques. And then, would that have been the first ever year of the Ducks, 95-6 for Ron Wilson? Dwayne Norris, father of new Sabre Josh Norris. I'm having a tough time saying Josh Norris because there's a guy in fantasy named Josh Norris that I talk about sometimes or, listen to. I got to get used to.
You have to work through that.
I have this Josh Norris on my fantasy hockey team.
Good.
But still, I think of that name being someone else. Just like Mike Leone. The Amerks coach's name is Mike Leone, but I have a friend who's also a fantasy expert by that name. Very complicating. As Kevin Adams said, these are challenging times. People are sick, and there's confusion over other things sometimes. Pre-game at 6 o'clock. Paul Hamilton joins us then. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog here, WGR.
More of Schopp and the Bulldog.
Getting connected with the fans brought to you by Northtown Kia, Western New York's #1 Kia dealer. Shop online at northtownkia.com. One move by the Bills today so far, to our knowledge. Joshua Palmer, receiver, late of the LA Chargers, 4 years there. Signs for a reported 3 years here, up to $36 million, half of that guaranteed. He will be an interesting player to talk about. Has been already today. Hasn't done a lot in the league. More of the same from the Bills in their receiver core? Oh, you mean that team with the MVP quarterback that wins the division every year? Go on.
It's another eater.
Someone else who can eat. Just don't expect to get fat.
It's another.
The money will have to do.
It's another everybody who is purportedly ready to eat.
So much eating.
Modestly. Modest eating.
It's like, if it were fun then when my grandmother would take my 2 sisters and me to lunch after we would swim in the morning. So I'm like 10 and they're maybe 8 and 6, somewhere in those years. And Mimi would take us to a prominent fast food restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
And we would like 3-way split a cheeseburger and a medium French fries. Back in the days when like a medium French fries was actually sort of normal medium size.
Uh-huh.
Not that many.
Right.
And she would divide up with a knife, one of the plastic knives from the prominent fast food restaurant, the cheeseburger 3 ways, and one by one count out the French fries for us. I'm 10 years old. I'm not 18. I'm 10 though, and we've been swimming all morning, and that's lunch.
That's a tough one there.
She was pretty thrifty.
Yeah.
And then she would take the prominent fast food restaurant garbage home and burn her house, not burn her house, heat her house.
That came out wrong. Yeah.
Heat her house with it. She didn't burn her house. She would use it in the fireplace.
Okay. Wow.
And that was styrofoam in those days.
Yeah.
Like if you got
say
a fish sandwich from this prominent.
This woman lived to be over 100.
She lived to be 100 years old.
Right. Okay. Despite burning styrofoam in a fireplace.
Even I'm still alive, and so are my sisters.
Right. It's incredible.
It is kind of incredible.
Good job, everybody.
It's Everybody Eats when I was a kid. When we were with Mimi. That was Everybody Eats all right. 3 words, nobody eats. How about that? Try that as a slogan. Not as happy.
No, right.
For a meal.
Is this pre-Happy Meal days at a prominent fast food restaurant? I don't feel like when I was a kid, I'm old enough to have missed the Happy Meal phase of the prominent fast food restaurants.
Yeah, there were no toys in this, so maybe it was before.
Yeah.
Once that happened, you kind of had to buy that for the kid.
Yeah.
It was right there.
Yeah.
No more dividing up.
No.
Small cheeseburgers. Now
everybody was going to need
3 ways.
You can't cut the toy up.
No, you shouldn't.
Toys usually don't work that way.
You shouldn't. Sabres in black and red tonight.
Get a leg of the doll.
Home, and who'd want that? Home for Edmonton. We'll talk to Paul Hamilton and get things going on the pregame show next. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog here, WGR.
Buffalo Sabres, WGR Sports Radio 550 and WGR550.com. This is a Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update.
Sabres pregame coming up next as the Buffalo Sabres host the Edmonton Oilers. Again, pregame at 6 for a 7 p.m. puck drop. This is, though, an ESPN Plus game, so if you do want to hear Dan and Rob, it's going to be right here on WGR. And if you did miss it, Sabres General Manager Kevin Adams did join the show earlier in the 5 o'clock hour. That's up at our website, WGR550.com, or can be found on the Odyssey app. Now to the NFL, as legal tampering did open up at noon. The Bills did get on the board, reportedly are signing wide receiver Josh Palmer to a 3-year, $36 million deal with $18 million of that guaranteed. We do have more on this signing up at our website, WGR550.com. We did have some quarterback news today. Sam Darnold, he heads to his new team, Seattle, on a 3-year, $100.5 million contract with $55 million of that guaranteed. Justin Fields heads to the Jets on a 2-year deal, and the Browns are acquiring quarterback Kenny Pickett from the Eagles for quarterback Dorian Thompson-Robinson and a 2024 fifth-round pick. Some other of the big free agent signings. New England had a very busy day, headlined by defensive tackle Milton Williams on a 4-year, $104 million deal with $63 of that guaranteed. Arizona made a splash on defense. They get Josh Sweat, 4 years, $76.4 million. And the Titans, they spend big on the offensive line. Left tackle Dan Moore, 4 years, $82 million, $50 million of that is guaranteed. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of business. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
Welcome to our pregame coverage of tonight's game, Sabres and Edmonton Oilers, KeyBank Center. Paul Hamilton will join us shortly. Lindy Ruff, Jason Zucker still to come on the pregame show. The trade deadline is over. The Florida trip is over. And the Sabres' losing streak is not over, Bulldog.
Winless in 6, I think is where we're at, right?
Sabres at 24-38 on the season now. Way out of it at this point. 54 points. That would be, if you're keeping score, 15 points behind the team in the last playoff spot in the East right now, which happens to be Dylan Cousins' Ottawa Senators. Edmonton tonight, second to Vegas in a good Pacific Division. Vegas, Edmonton, L.A. battling for the top seeds. Is that like the Atlantic for you, where you'd really hope to finish first because of the potential matchup difference, or is LA not on the same, like on the Tampa level?
Yeah, I don't think they are. In fact, have they not? I think they've lost to Edmonton 3 years running
in the playoffs
in this matchup. Yeah, so I don't think it meets that. I think the other division in the West, the Central, is like this with Dallas and Colorado chasing Winnipeg, and that's tightened up. Well, not so much for Colorado and Dallas. That's a 10-point gap right now going into play tonight. So it looks like Colorado's stuck in there. But if you're Dallas, man, you want to move heaven and earth to try to track down Winnipeg 6 points ahead of you right now with one game in hand.
Right, you end up playing like Calgary maybe instead of the Avs.
Instead of the Avs, yeah. I mean, that's a big, big payoff there. And those teams have been going at it all year, and now with Rantanen ending up in Dallas after the trade deadline, because he went from Colorado to Carolina, a month or so ago or more, and never really fit in there, and now he's on Dallas, so that is even hotter than it would have been. So I think in that division as well as the Sabres division, getting that top spot is definitely a huge advantage.
I think the team I'd want to play in the East is Washington, who's in first. That division is different because I think they're just okay, but they have a great record. That happens all the time in the NHL. The Oilers at 37-26, 78 points, 37-22-4, and pretty safely entrenched, not all the way, in a playoff spot out west. Of course, Connor McDavid, Draisaitl, and the Oilers in Buffalo for their one visit a year. One of the best tickets because of McDavid's popularity and excellence. He has Draisaitl has 95 points to lead the way, and he leads the league in goals with 46. Let's bring on Paul Hamilton here. Quickly before we do, let me say that as you're driving to the game tonight, your drive to the game is brought to you by Paddock Chevrolet, celebrating 90 years of business. Paul, with or without Slither behind him, joins us.
No Slither tonight.
No anything just yet, so let's talk quickly here. The Florida trip, the trade deadline in there, what are your takeaways?
Yeah, they had to start trading some of the core. You don't have to blow the whole thing up, but the core is not working. It's as simple as that. And they have to start trading some of that out of here. The core's been together for, by the end of this season, 3 years, and that's long enough to realize that you're still in last place in the Eastern Conference by a lot, and you have to start moving it. So they did, but it can't stop there. There has to be more, and that will, if it doesn't come in the summertime, then they're going to be in trouble again. So, we'll see what happens in the summertime.
This was, close enough to, I'm asking you, close enough to what you thought was called for with the Sabres, Paul? You weren't sitting here talking to us about draft picks and prospects. You wanted some kind of big move, and apparently they agreed.
Yeah, that's 2 years in a row now that they've actually been able to pull off a hockey trade at the trade deadline, which isn't the easiest thing to do, but they've been able to do it. Last year, Bo Byram's turned into a nice player for them. We'll see if they can get him signed to a long-term thing, or if it's just going to be a couple of years. If it's just a couple of years, then what good is, although Casey Middlestat did not work out in Colorado, so you've got that. But it's still you have one, now you have another. It's not often that $7 million players, 7.9 and 7.1, are traded for each other. But, that was the case in this particular trade, and we'll see where it goes from there.
I think it's interesting. We just talked to Kevin Adams within the last half an hour or so, Paul, and one thing that I brought up to him was that his coach, Lindy Ruff, referred to Norris as a player who potentially, I think, could be a number one. So he's got the skill set to be a number one center. And the first thing I thought of when I heard Lindy say that was, what is the future for Tage Thompson? I can appreciate his flexibility, but one of the things, I think we liked about the build to begin with before it all kind of unraveled is I'm setting myself up at center ice. And now getting Norris, who I think, if healthy, is an upgrade over Cousins, certainly production-wise. It's just a question of, can he stay on the ice? Like, he'll hit Cousins' best year if he plays, 75 games. So slotting him in behind Thompson in the lineup looks pretty good, but Lindy talking about him being a number one center and this continued usage of Thompson on the wing has me wondering if Thompson's ever going to get back in the middle.
I think you need context here. He was asked, do you think Norris has the ability to be a number one center for you?
Oh, directly asked that question. Okay.
Yes. So Tage Thompson wasn't in the question or anything like that. So I think, what he was talking about really had nothing to do with Tage Thompson. He was just talking about would he have the ability to do that if asked. So that's where that stands. I still don't think if they know where they eventually want Tage Thompson to slot in if they become a good team. He was a left winger to start that game. Well, that didn't work. Tuck was on the right, he was on the left. That was the first time they had tried him on the left. And Norris was in the middle. Lindy could see rather quickly that wasn't going to work, so then Benson wound up on the line, and they just started different things going, which again illustrates the need for another top six forward, a veteran type forward that they need. Benson and Greenway have their, what you need them for, but not playing on that line. So, you still are looking for that person that's not actually on the team.
And I think they would probably be expecting Kulik, who's still out sick and was out sick on Saturday, to be holding down one of those top 2 center spots eventually too, right?
Yeah, it could be. I mean, if they do wind up keeping Thompson on the wing, then you might be looking at Kulik and Norris being your top 2 centers, and in one fashion or the other. I don't know right now if you'd say which one could be one. I think Kulik has a very high ceiling. How high that goes, I don't know. He has not scored 35 goals in the league. Norris has. But still, I think it's too early to say which could be which or how they want to do it. And I think we might see a lot of experimenting here in the back half of the season. Now's the time to do it. Take a look at it now so you know during the summertime what you've got and what you potentially could have.
Are you surprised by anything that didn't happen? And I know what I sound like asking that. It's the Sabres. Are you surprised by anything that didn't happen?
I don't expect anything at the trade deadline, so that doesn't.
Right.
So to answer that question, no, I wasn't surprised by anything because I don't expect anything. So I've learned. I guess I've been through so many of these, and when you think you have it figured out, you don't. And when you don't think you have it figured out, you actually did. It's a goofy time, and you just can't. So I figured Yoki Haru might get moved, and we've talked about it for months. I had heard that he had asked to be traded. It took a while, but he didn't want to be a part of some place where he wasn't wanted, and it was obviously he wasn't wanted here. So that got done. So I suppose I might have been surprised if that didn't get done, but other than that, no. At the trade deadline, no surprises.
Yeah, what surprised me is that I don't consume every morsel of media around, the league and approaching the trade deadline, but I read plenty, and all the big names, your TSNs and your Sportsnets and a couple of other columnists and whatnot, the trade big boards. I never heard or saw Josh Norris's name one time in all of that. I mean, so that player, that was a surprise to me. I also, Paul, I think from all these years talking to us, and it turned out just to be me on Friday, these trade deadline days, just, all right, I'm going to go in and talk about how everyone hates their team because they didn't do anything again today. And, Norris was just out of nowhere. Had you thought about him at all or heard did you have any reason to be thinking that was a player that could be moved? You look back on it now, you can say, well, he's been hurt. I can see it from Ottawa's standpoint. They want something more dependable, even if it doesn't produce as much as Norris. But I never heard his name one time from Canadian media in the run-up to the trade deadline.
And neither had I, and that's why I cringed when I heard Peterka, because that went against anything I had heard. But there's more than 2 or 3 people trying to put that one out there. Kevin Adams said that was absolutely, unequivocally not true at all. What was being said there. Actually, there was a New York reporter that came out and said the same thing, that this is not right, what's out there. There are not talks going on with J.J. Peterka and the Rangers. And that's, why you've heard me for years. And I know it's frustrating for a talk show host to hear their beat reporters say this because, that's your job to talk about it, But I just hate listening to rumors because I know most of the time they don't come true. A lot of the time it's not even true. And, people have to put content out there. And sometimes they put content out there that just isn't right. And I cringed when I heard that Peterka thing.
I'm realizing that you're a Yankee fan, so I'm already regretting this. But do you choose to? I'm not making fun. Do you choose to believe that Garrett Cole having Tommy John surgery is true? I believe that one is confirmed.
Well,
that's confirmed. Then I guess I do believe it.
Not only did you cringed, I don't think we got a chance to talk about this on Friday. You cringed. I went to bed. The Peterka, the last thing I saw was somebody retweeting Renaud Lavoie with it translated from French that there was something cooking there, and I'm going to bed. I closed my eyes and I opened them up 30 seconds later going, oh my God, they're going to trade for Matt Rempe. And I was just like, oh God, no, no! And then, woke up to find, that it had all been refuted.
Yeah, but here in Buffalo, they would love that if they traded.
Sure, they would.
Because that's how a lot of fans roll here.
Sure.
The more you fight, the better you're going to be. So,
great.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway.
Can I ask about Cousins? Just to maybe wrap up his time here. I know you've been doing this already, Paul, but
that's okay.
What went wrong? I mean, we've watched him go from being like what seemed like a great idea as a core piece to just almost off the rails. You might say that it was because of the contract. I don't know. I mean, his game really went downhill.
I don't think, personally, I don't think the contract had anything to do with it. I think Hathaway had a lot to do with it because Dylan Cousins became a different player after that. He always had his nose in things, and he was the player that the Ottawa media are talking about now that they think they got. And all of a sudden, he got in that fight and got his face smashed in and broken bones in his face and everything else. And I don't think he's been the same since. You just didn't see him involved in a lot of things, and sometimes he was tentative. And I just think it took him a while to actually get back to any resemblance of his game at all. But I don't think it ever all came back. And maybe with Ottawa it will. Maybe a new change of scenery and new teammates will get him there. And even if he does, I don't think fans should say, well, they never should have traded him, because I think it became rather obvious this is the second season in a row that it just wasn't going to come back here in Buffalo for whatever the reason is. So, I think that had a lot to do with it.
Yeah, I recalled him calling the team soft at some point and kind of getting rebuked, and not that gently, by the GM.
Yeah, in Carolina.
And I wondered if that had anything to do with like his mindset and his buy-in level, like that, because I don't think anyone that watches the Sabres, case in point, the Rempe conversation we just had, would have balked at a prominent player on the team calling them soft. I think we would have referred to that as leadership. You're trying to tell everyone involved here, like, we're not hard enough. We're soft. And to have the GM smack him for it publicly was, I don't know. I'd love to know if Adams would like that back, because I don't think that was a very good look. I don't know if that contributed to it at all. Could have meant nothing to the kid. I don't know. But between getting pummeled in front of 20,000 people and having your GM smack you because you called, the team soft, I could understand if mentally, emotionally, he was not always in the best place.
I think maybe what the message to him was, your message I don't have a problem with, but do it behind closed doors.
Right.
Call your teammates out, call them into the room, and call them out there. Talk about it there. Don't take it out of the room. I think that might have been the message to him, that we don't need that kind of stuff in the media. If you believe that, then battle it out in the locker room with your teammates. And do it that way. That would be my guess. Obviously, neither one of us were there for the conversation, but that would be my guess.
Yep.
Just don't do that publicly. Do it in the room.
Makes sense. Paul, let's spend just a minute or two here on tonight's opponent, the Edmonton Oilers. Our spotlight look at tonight's opponent brought to you by Tullamore Dew Irish Whiskey. When it's game time, it's Tully time. Obviously, the top end of this thing everyone knows about. How about Skinner? We know we had like a technical snafu, so we're not going to get to hear from him like you'd hope that we would.
I apologize for that. I would have liked to. But
it's how it goes. What stood out from talking to him? Because I know it was a lengthy conversation you had with him.
Yeah, not a whole lot. I mean, Jeff is he's a PR person's dream. He will talk as long as you want to talk. He will give you long answers, and he will say absolutely nothing. And he did that when he was with Buffalo. He did that today. Really, the only thing I took out of it is he talked about the fans here in Buffalo, and he goes, being in Toronto, he kind of knew this, but he goes, you really don't know until you get here. And he says, being a Sabre, it's being part of the community. He said, and it's really the passion that the fans have for this team, and they live and die with their sports teams. And he's saying it in a good way, but he said, even living in Toronto, you don't realize it until you become a part of it. And that's what he took away from being with a Sabre. Plus, the relationships and the friends that he had. But that was the biggest thing that he took, was just the fans and how they are connected to their sports teams.
Paul, thank you. Edmonton should be fun. I mean, they play high-scoring games. Of course, you've got the star power with the Oilers. I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, and Draisaitl, you talked about his goals. He's 11 ahead of the next guy. He has 46. Scheifele and Nylander have 35.
Pretty safe.
Yep.
Safe-looking lead. Thanks again, Paul.
Yep.
Yeah, he might get to. I think I heard Brian Duff and Marty talking about this earlier on Sabres Live. He may get 250 before anybody else in the league gets to 40.
I thought you were going to say he might get to Gretzky, because that's what people are talking about now. The vulnerability of Wayne Gretzky's goal-scoring record. Well, he's got a ways to go.
Yes, he does.
Ovechkin is within 8. That's his number. The Edmonton Oilers, for all their scoring prowess, this is not going to work perfectly. They do not have a shootout goal this year, Edmonton.
How about that? How many shootouts have they had?
1.
Okay, well.
They lost to Detroit on January 30th, 3-2, and they went 0-2 in that shootout.
All right, we'll get them to a shootout. You'll have them right where you want them.
It's over.
You have them right where you want them.
They don't have any talent. All you want to do is get them into a breakaway contest.
Right.
That's the plan. Break.
That makes sense. Right. Well, I hope, in a season that's been completely lost here, you just alluded to it. Hopefully it's a fun night in there. Ideally, right, for Sabres fans, I think you'd like to see something spectacular from McDavid and your team win 6-5 or 5-4 or something, right? Just give me some highlights. Give me like, wow, I was in the building for that. One of these dashing rushes through the neutral zone where he just blows the doors off of a poor defenseman standing there waiting for him. Give me something like that, but, still a Sabres win, and maybe you'll have a successful evening.
Somewhat like Thursday's game in Tampa. Speaking of a 6-5 game, that was kind of a fun one. Sabres let a 5-3 lead get away. They're looking for their first win since when? When we were all kind of excited? It was the Carolina, the Hartford game was the first loss in the streak. So before that, as I scramble here, Anaheim on February 25th was the Sabres' last win. It's 0-5-1 since. Lindy Ruff and Jason Zucker to come here on the postgame show. Sabres and Oilers face off just after 7. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog. It's a Sabres pregame show on WGR.
WGR